Are folks still recording?
Are they?
I think they're all back. No. Can you see? Oh, you can't see on there. Why am I featured on there? Let's see.
Yeah, maybe give us the gallery.
We are all back.
Thanks, Deja.
Who remembers how to do this view? Nope, that's not it. I'm trying to figure out the camera on here so we can see everybody. Joey, do you remember how to do this? Let's see. Video settings. And is it?
Yeah, the last time I was here,
I think that's it. I don't know. Try the what?
The more?
Summers.
Stop incoming videos, only thing on there.
So I believe
It's set to.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining our quarterly meeting. Today is Thursday, September 12th. Let's see, maybe we'll go ahead and start with reminders. Please remember to say your name when you speak. This is a public meeting and is recorded as a formal advisory meeting of the state. If you are a member of the public and wish to make a comment, there's a public comment section at the end of the agenda. For members who want to make a public comment, you will have 3 minutes per person to speak. And if you'd like to sign up for that, please send a comment or a message to Melissa and she'll make sure that we have time for you to say a few words. And we'll go ahead and begin with roll call.
All right. Zan Ojeru, Parasa Chanrami,
Here.
Yoseline De La Garza, Jenny Glass. Oh, Yoseline is here. Thanks, Yoseline. Jenny Glass, Janine Hartley, Celeste Jansen, Alex Johnson, Robin Johnson, Sam Coe,
Here.
Kim Lay,
Here.
Andy Leonard, Tabidi Lewis is here but in another meeting and will join us as soon as possible. Adrian Livingston.
Here.
Adrian's here. Thanks, Adrian. Christina McMahon.
Here.
Maricela Ortega.
Here.
Jeff Parker.
Here.
Savannah Relatos. Molly Rogers.
Here.
Diana Rojas.
Here.
Santana. Janelle Theobald. Liz Thorne.
Here.
And Kiwi Wilson. And that is just quorum right now. Counting Tabidi, who will join us in this room in a moment.
Thank you, Melissa. And just a quick update, we have a director's update at 10:30. 10:40, we have the juvenile justice update. And then 10:50, the Deschutes County Extended Detention Program. At 11, we'll be discussing Title II RFA. And then 11:10, the RFA Workgroup will give us a quick update. And then strategic plan. After that, we'll take a break and then we'll have a Grantee Spotlight from Marion County Family Support Program. And that'll be a working lunch at 12:35. We'll have committee updates. We'll discuss the YDO retreat at 12:45. Sorry, yes, 12:45. The other one was 12:30, apologies. And we'll do the NYEC attendee check-in, which is virtual at 1 p.m. Yeah, and then we'll do public comment at 1:30, YDO update, meeting roundup discussion at 1:40, and we should close out by 2 p.m. today. I'm going to pass it to Brian for the director's update.
Thanks, Marcella, and thanks everybody. Those online and virtual, appreciate your attendance, and those here in person. Yeah, good morning. What is it? Thursday, September 12th. There's for those in the room, there's some coffee and there's some treats. So, do as you need to do to get those bathrooms out, either to the right or the left out the door. And just as a reminder, we've got, help me here, I think 5 council members who are in Washington, D.C. for the National Youth Employment Coalition Youth Days Conference. So again, appreciate those who are online and in person, so we can make sure to vote on the things we need to vote on and discuss the various items on the agenda. We have a couple of our newest council members at that Youth Days conference, both Savannah and Alex. So you will get to see them on screen, I think, around 1 o'clock today. Paul is there, Paul from staff is there, Andy Leonard from the council is also there, and Janine Hartley, also council member, is there.
Janelle is there. Is there
And
other youth
Janelle,
member there?
thank you, Janelle is there.
And Alex is
Yeah, mentioned Alex and Savannah. So yeah, the group is, 5 different folks, 3 of whom are youth committee members. And I saw a text from Paul saying, the first visit went great, getting a quick snack and off to the next. So excited about hearing from them. And then we'll probably give them more of the floor in December to talk about what they were able to do. There's been, if I'm not mistaken, some kind of training and conversation this morning, and then I think this afternoon and they are visiting our federal delegation, senators and congress people on the Hill. I think they've got 3 meetings set up with different members of Oregon's federal delegation. So our council members are going to get to meet with folks on the Hill. So that's pretty exciting. So more to come on that at 1. We'll beam them in from Washington, D.C. The main thing I wanted to give folks an update on, and Cord and I may tag team a little bit on this, is just a quick update on the lawsuit that was filed in, goodness, what are we in September? So it was probably filed in the springtime. Quick bit of background, right? Youth 715 Ministries, a Medford-based organization which we have funded in the past, was initially awarded a conditional award based on their application and the evaluation in the spring, and then we found some information was provided to us about some hiring practices, which then from that we made the decision after consultation with necessary parties. We terminated that conditional award, and again on the basis that a certification which they had provided, a kind of provision of RFA, was that there be that they certify to non-discriminatory practices and HR and hiring, provision of service, and also contracting, subcontracting. And the information that we received was that there was HR practices that they were primarily interested in hiring folks who were aligned with their religious beliefs. They then brought a suit and challenged that termination. A district court ruled that case was not they kind of dismissed some of they basically dismissed the case. I won't to go into all sorts of details. Happy to answer questions, but that case was and the motions that were brought forward by both the defendants and the plaintiffs ultimately led to the dismissal of the case at the district court level. The plaintiffs then appealed that district court ruling, and then a court of appeals earlier this summer, I think the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, overruled the district court ruling and said there's merit to the information and merit to the case that was filed, and they directed us to provide to the words in the ruling were allow the organization to participate in our grant program. So based on that appeals court ruling, we have taken the necessary steps to make an award to U715. It breaks down into a couple of different awards. We're working out some of the details. One of they had applied for community investment grant in the amount of about, I think, $340,000. So that grant is, we're moving forward and in conversation with them on that. And then there was another amount that they were going to subcontract with another organization. And based on that appeals court ruling, we've also been, the best advice has been to also make sure that those dollars are awarded to U715. So that's what we're in the process of doing, working out the details of grant agreements. I believe the state will continue to determine what the next steps are in terms of any additional information that they want to provide to the appeals court. But again, the ruling of the appeals court was very clear and was in order that we move forward with allowing the organization to participate in the grant program. And that's with that court order, we needed to proceed with the steps to fulfill the grant. So that's like, I don't know, thumbnail, high level, little details here and there. I think we've tried to provide updates about this at our quarterly meetings, and just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to speed. Before there are questions, I might ask Cord, who's been in the conversations with me around this topic. Cord, is there anything you would add or refine in what I've said?
Maybe the one thing I might sort of say is that specifically, so we are under an injunction. So the injunction, the order of the appeals court is to essentially operate the way we would have prior to any action that was taken to discontinue the negotiations. And so as of right now, the next step, as I understand it, is that the essentially filings are due to the appeals court, and there's an expedited timeline for the appeals court to hear arguments in the case. But right now, the injunction essentially allows 715 to participate in the grant program while the court case proceeds. And then, yes, I mean, everything else, it tracks. Thank you, Brian, for the summary.
Yeah, thanks, Cord, for those additional remarks. Are there questions or comments from council members?
Yeah, Jeff Parker here. Just real quick question: were those funds re-obligated somewhere else, or do we still have them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I don't know if I said my name. Brian Detman, Youth Development Oregon Director. I didn't say that at the beginning. But Jeff, we had re-obligated the funds when we terminated the award. So we have been and continue to be in conversation with our finance folks who sit at the Department of Education about ensuring that dollars that now are being awarded above what we were expecting to award are there. So I think with what often happens through a biennium is that some dollars go unspent. So we feel good about the ability to obligate the funds, these new funds. But great question. But we're sorting it out. There's going to be, I think, it feels like the grant in our community investment area, as I said, and I believe we'll also are now in conversation about some dollars from our Future Ready funding. So we need to work out the details there. But I think by the end of the biennium, we'll not go over our grant and aid funding. Other questions or comments? I'm just looking online too. I don't know, Melissa, do you see any hands up or anything in the chat perhaps? Or Joy? No, nothing. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I know we want to keep moving. We're about 10:34. We'll other than that, I guess my update is you're going to hear more information today about the RFA Workgroup and good work happening there, strategic planning and updates there. Grant managers and staff are working on ensuring that the programs that we do operate around juvenile crime prevention, around our other grants that are happening in and around the state are going forward and moving. And while we had, as you all may recall, a big delay in the fall, organizations I think have been doing really important and strong work throughout the state this summer and now at the beginning of the school year. So I'm excited about that. And just again, more in-person activity is happening. Our re-engagement grantees and other associated YDO grantees are coming together in convenings that we've organized. So it's really been great to have our grantees as well as other kind of agencies and system partners, for example, from the system of care come. So there's just been some really great involvement across different youth and family serving systems in our work over the past several months. So feel good about that. I'll say one other thing real quickly. The larger maybe question in some of your minds around, okay, so what does our budget look like in the coming biennium? The state forecast came out, and I think it was kind of mixed news. I think when you see the economic forecast, there is good revenue coming from into the state, and there have been some challenges. I mean, fires and other kind of emergencies have meant that in this biennium, the state has overspent, so that some of those dollars will need to be made up in the next biennium. So whether or not we have any increase in our budget in the next biennium, I think is in question. We may be looking at some kind of a reduction, maybe 5%, maybe 10%. So those, nothing final. There's another economic forecast to come out, but the conversations that I've had with the governor's office and with the Department of Education, since our budget sits within their budget, we are doing the necessary work and the exercises around what does budget reduction look like. So right now, the idea that we get even a 1% budget increase, I think, is not by any means guaranteed. So that's your budget update. All right. Any questions or comments before we move? So we can get to a State Advisory Group Juvenile Justice Committee update. Maricel, I turn it back to you.
Yes, so I'll turn it to Anya and Molly for the State Advisory Group and Juvenile Justice Committee update.
You want to kick it off?
Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
We didn't have our annotated version yet put together. How about you start?
There's nothing in my annotated
I know. So, we're really busy. That's what I will tell you about the Juvenile Justice Committee is that they're going to talk about the Title II RFA in just a minute, but the Juvenile Justice Committee really has been working, and I really love opening with the partners that you talked about, because partners from OJD and OYA and System of Care and Family are helping with the Juvenile Justice Subcommittee on the detention guidelines. And so we've had 2 meetings that have been robust and really meaningful. And while I had anticipated getting through 2 sections a meeting, we're getting through 1 section a meeting. But the value of the conversation has just been really, really good. And so that's been what we've been working on. We also have been, you're gonna get presented the Deschutes extended detention in just a minute, but we have, we did our site review and Anya will talk about that. And then we have another one coming up for Josephine County. And so counties are really engaging with the Juvenile Justice Subcommittee and the SAG. And it's fun to hear that these guys are on the Hill at the NYEC, because when the Juvenile Justice Committee goes back to DC in May, we do the Hill run. And so it's fun to hear that they're not just hearing YDO once a year, but they're hearing about us more than that. That's really cool. So Anya, there's your segue.
Awesome, thank you, Molly. To add to the work that Molly just described, I just want to say that juvenile detention guidelines work has been a very, I don't mind that it's taking us longer, but we're making it better. So between the quality and quickness of procedure, I think quality sort of takes precedence here. So the work continues. Probably it was a little ambitious for us to think that we will be done. The guidelines will be issued in 2024. We're probably likely going to be the 2025 petition. But yeah, so we'll get there. We'll get there. But it's going on. And Molly, thank you for your leadership on this. And Christina, thank you for dedicating some Plaquemines County staff to help us proceed. I'll just add a few things about the federal side of things. And then we will go to the Deschutes detention, 30-day detention, and then Lawrence will give you an update on the current RFA for federal funds. So on the federal side, you may recall that we had an extended desk review, also known as audit. In June this year, we received a letter with 5, they're not findings, they're additional questions and requests for additional information. All 5 areas are in different parts of OD work. So there's a procurement question, there is an accounting question, there is a general grant management question, and there are a couple of things just relating to our own procedures. So there are several people working on the response, and we should be done by next week collectively. So it's taken care of. We also submitted Title II 3-year plan for fiscal year 24 funding, and that will presumably will continue to 25 and 26. So the priorities for that planning is there are 3. One is probation reform that we will be continuing with support of Coalition for Juvenile Justice and Annie Casey Foundation. Second one is delinquency prevention. Will continue our prevention efforts in alignment with the overall goals of the YDO. And compliance monitoring. It's important for us to have a compliance monitor who is sitting right next to me, Lindsay here, because on her shoulders there is the future of the funding. If we're not in compliance, honestly, like, so no small task. But unless we are in compliance with the act, we are not eligible to receive at least full funding. So anyway, so Lindsay's work is super important. So those are the 3 priorities that we've identified. We're still not able to use racial and ethnic disparities as a funding priority because it's until the act is rewritten. If it's rewritten, it doesn't fall within the 75% of the required allocation thing, but on our end, we make it a priority once we issue sub-awards. So those of you who've seen or been helping Lawrence with the application review will know that reducing racial and ethnic disparities is a #1 goal of whatever programs they're applying for funding to receive. So that's very quickly up. We've been very fortunate to be able to support the OJDA conference this year. The association with Christine being the president sent a request to the Juvenile Justice Committee to provide technical assistance to support the conference, which is an annual conference. I don't know, Christine, if you want to say a couple of words since you are the mastermind.
The mastermind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Behind the
So many
agenda
things.
and behind, putting it all together. Well, we've seen the agenda and it looks fantastic, but this is your if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, I do. For the record, Christina McMahon, council member and Juvenile Department Director for Clackamas County. Yes, I am the president of OJDDA, but my involvement is really that I am also the conference planning chair for our OJDDA committee. So I've been wearing multiple hats this year. We've been planning this for about a year, and I cannot thank Anya and Brian and Lawrence for many contributions that have really, I believe, fed into what is going to be the greatest conference in the history of OJDDA. This will be my 20th year in attending a conference. We didn't have one in 2020, but I would have gone if we had. So I've had a lot of opportunities to be on a planning committee, chair a planning committee, and attend conferences. This one is absolutely spectacular, and I really, really, really want to give a shout out to the folks at YDO because we have received very helpful technical assistance support from YDO. So we consider YDO to be our diamond supporter because of the technical assistance. Diamond. That's the best we could. That actually was Molly's idea. I wanted to go with platinum, and Molly said, "Don't you know, Anya? She
It
likes
sparkles.
sparkly things."
My reputation.
Yes, it does. So we're really excited. The theme this year, I know I've talked about this quite a bit, is honoring our community's equity in action. And the slate of folks that we've put together to come, we've got an amazing mix of national people, but also people in organizations throughout Oregon who are doing great work at the community level. So very, very excited about it, but it really would not have been possible without the support that we've got, not just monetarily, but helping us with ideas of presenters and, being able to have a sounding board at times. So I'm sorry for all of you that are not going to be able to go to it, but as of right now, we have, I think, 282 registered participants. Some of those folks are not paying registrations because when they're coming to the conference to present for us at no charge, we don't make them pay a conference fee. We have good manners. We like to try to have good manners at OJDDA. So pretty excited about it. There's so many surprises. I was putting a little tease out here with Lawrence, and because he's never been to a conference, there are things that will be pretty spectacular that have never happened at a conference before. So sorry if you can't. I know you're busy. You're planning your own event, but it's just, I really think, going to be memorable. And the way I've been referring to it is, it's an amazing opportunity to learn and come together and build relationship and network. And then also for all the people that we've really tried to make this multidisciplinary this year. It's not just, historically it was pretty focused in the past on juvenile department employees, but we've really done a lot of reach out. We have, I think, 9 judges coming this year. We've never had that many judges coming. We're offering CLEs for the attorneys. We have some members of the bar that are going to be attending. We also did the work to get continuing education units available. Many of us have staff that are licensed clinicians who really need those credits. So we've tried to do a bunch of things to make it value added. I think one of the things I'm just going to reveal because it's on the website. So I guess I'm not really revealing, but it involves your organization. Latino Network, we've never had youth come and do entertainment, or be part of our president's reception, which starts on Sunday evening. And Latino Network is partnering with us, and they have a bunch of families and staff that are bringing over 14 young people that are members of their ballet folklorico, and they're going to be doing a performance as part of our president's reception. So I am super excited about that. Alice Perry, who is my assistant director and former leader at Latino Network, is going to be introducing them. She was instrumental in getting them to be there. But anyway, that's an example of without the support that we've gotten from YDO, we wouldn't have been able to do some of these extra pieces. So anyway, Tabidi, you thought, and at Seaside, I keep envisioning us at the table enjoying the comedian together 2 years ago. I don't think you can go this year, but we're going to miss you. And so I just wanted to make sure I rubbed it in as much as possible.
Well, there's still time to reconsider.
Yeah, I know it says registration's closed, but you know, I can make exceptions.
And her teaser's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so anyway, thanks for
That's
letting me
awesome.
talk about it.
Thank you, Christina.
Well, the part I left out about the multidisciplinary is, yeah, it's going to be a great learning opportunity, explore things we haven't maybe had exposure to, networking. But the other thing I'm super excited about, which is the part I'm not going to reveal, the little touches, I think it's going to be an oasis for all the people who attend. Everyone who attends has some connection to working with youth and families, whatever discipline they come from. So I think it's going to be an opportunity for people to feel rejuvenated, appreciated, inspired, and to get a time out from the crazy world that we live in juvenile justice or juvenile justice adjacent or work with youth and family disciplines. So those are the reasons. I'm not gonna lie, Molly, thanks for putting up with all my venting. It has been a workload for this committee, but they've come together and done an amazing job. And there were times I'm like, how can we just keep going? This is so much work. But then in the last few weeks, as everything's come together, I'm really, I feel rejuvenated. Whatever that word is. Yeah. Inspired and excited because I know what other folks are going to get to experience for this. So if any of you think it's not as great as I say, please don't come up to me and tell me that. We can do it like a weekend. Anyway, so thank you. I'm sure it will be great. So let me know if you feel inspired after.
I will definitely let you know.
I'm already inspired.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now, after
Just from the preamble.
opening speech. Well, appreciate them. Like, we're very, very happy to be able to support a couple of other conferences I want to mention now as part of the federal update. So the Coalition for Juvenile Justice is hosting a racial and ethnic disparities conference in October in Seattle. And Lawrence and Joy will be attending for us. We haven't received other requests to participate in Seattle. It's too close and not as exciting in October as I tried to explain to the coalition finding, planners, but they did not listen to me. But Lawrence is on the review committee for the program. So I'm sure with his support, the selection will be amazing.
Yes.
Almost as good as yours, Christine. Almost.
You can be our parent. And Anya, this is Molly. I think that we're going to get a virtual link that you guys have been advocating for, which is really, timing wise, I would go to Seattle, but the timing wise, it just didn't work out. But it would be so cool to have a virtual link.
I think Joy followed up.
They're
What did
working
they
on
say?
it, so that's that's
Yeah, we're
great.
gonna get an update on Friday and confirm and then get it moving.
Wonderful, thank you. And then there is a big event coming up in Washington, D.C. in November, and that's the 50th anniversary of the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act. So registration is open, and we'll receive several requests to participate, and I think was open to receive an additional request. So it's coming up, and it's going to be a 3-day event in DC in November, just the week before Thanksgiving. Mention of the exact date. So that's all for the federal part, but before we go back into the state work, the Deschutes detention facility, just a reminder to the Youth Development Council members, the new planning guidelines are about to come for the juvenile crime prevention. And we'll probably have a conversation about it at the December meeting. But meanwhile, Lawrence has been catching up with the juvenile department directors across the state to see where the people are at with the racial ethnic disparities work. And Lawrence has been offering his support, both currently and for future planning. So that's all I think we have for the Juvenile Justice Committee update, and we have 2 more items on the agenda, so we can.
We've got about
overwhelming
6
here.
minutes, so
Okay.
gotta keep going.
Want to kick off on Deschutes County?
Yeah, do you want to start?
Sure. So one of the responsibilities of youth development or the Youth Development Council is approving extended detention programs across the state. So they're certified for 6 years or approved for 6 years. And Deschutes County submitted their reapplication. And so what we did, the process was they gave us the application, we reviewed it, we sent some questions, and then a team of us, including Zan and Anya and Lawrence and myself and Lindsay and Sam, went down and did a tour with the Deschutes County Detention 30-day extended program. And we sat and had conversations around the questions, and Kim sent questions in, and we walked through each of the questions with the detention manager and team. And then we back and forth, there was a couple things, and now at the Juvenile Justice Subcommittee meeting, the consensus was to bring it forward to the Youth Development Council for approval. And so that's what we would be in the materials were in your packet that was sent out. And so as a Youth Development Council member, I believe I can make a motion to the Development Council to approve the Deschutes County 30-day extended detention program application. I think I got that right.
Are we asking for a second?
Yeah, we need a second.
I'll second.
Well, I'm not leading this, you are.
Oh.
I mean, you get to.
I'll say.
So we second, and then should we go around?
You take a vote?
Any conversation or questions?
Yeah,
We have discussion.
We have
Oh, discussion.
Thanks, Jeff Parker here, Youth Development Council member. I hope my colleagues will just indulge me because I do have a couple questions here. I think this is a matter of high consequence, and I just need to better understand it. With curiosity, not question.
Yeah, no, do please.
So first question is, the facility I'm assuming is somewhere in the Bend Redmond area?
It is. It's located on the Community Justice Campus in Bend.
Okay.
So it's in their detention facility.
And so my curiosity here is the capacity is 2 youth at a time for 30 days of overnight detention. I'm assuming there's a dedicated staff member there, 24 hours a day with them.
Yeah.
And so why is it only 2 youth? I'm just thinking about the loneliness, the separation, the sense of isolation,
Sure.
if you are only 1 youth spending the night over there. So I'm just hoping to understand that.
Sure. So I'll take that, and then Anya, you want to fill in, and Christina, you can jump in too. Molly Rogers with Juvenile Justice Subcommittee. So the 30-day extended detention is actually located as part of the detention facility. And so there are other detention youth there, but in the statutory structure of the state of Oregon, youth can only be sentenced to detention up to 8 days unless there is an approved 30-day program. And so while there may be only 1 youth in the 30-day extended detention program, what that really is saying is that youth is getting a lot more services and a case manager assigned to them that's different than the other youth who are in detention. So it's enhanced services.
Totally helps. And again, apologies for
Great question.
I'm just imagining a young person from Lakeview, from Ontario, from Mal here, a tribal member from Burns, being 150 miles away from their family for 30 days,
Yeah.
and how that may have that opposite effect of an intervention. Or again, I'm not questioning at all this, but I just want to make sure I understand it. What is the capacity for other youth in detention that are maybe on that 8-day or less stay? I'm just trying to imagine the environment that they're in.
How many kids are there?
Yeah, how many could be there?
Oh, so Deschutes County is capacity of 16 youth at any given time, but often there are 4 or 5 youth average daily population. So it is a small population. Your other question that you bring up is around, that's really good, is around distance from family. One of the challenges in the state of Oregon is there's only 11 detention facilities across the state, and the most eastern ones are Klamath, Deschutes, and Norcor. And so that's all on Highway 97. And you can imagine that Highway 97 is a long way from the Idaho border. And so extended detention in the scheme of juvenile justice is at that very top as a prevention of out-of-home long-term placement. And so it's held for that. That's why there's only a couple of youth in at a time, because it's at the top of the peak before they go over the Oregon Youth Authority.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian Devon, Youth Development, just maybe a clarifying question, because you mentioned those 3 facilities. Does the Deschutes County facility hold young people from all those counties that Jeff mentioned? I just can't remember what the spread is among facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes. They have a contract with the Central and Eastern Oregon Juvenile Justice Consortium, which is the counties east. Norcor, which is located in Wasco County, also has a 30-day extended detention program. But to be very clear and honest, they can be placed from, Kojak also has a contract with Josephine County, because it really is services matching with the young person's needs. But yes, Deschutes County primarily serves Deschutes County. But they, once in a while, will have a young person from another county. Yes.
I just wanted to comment, Jeff, when I was, I'm so sorry. I thought I only had to do it once.
No, every time.
Every time. All right, I stand corrected, Mr. Director. Christina McMahon, Clackamas County Juvenile Department Director, OJDDA representative. I used to be the juvenile director in Douglas County in one of my incarnations, and when I was down there, we started a 30-day detention program. And as Molly already identified, case manager assigned, trying to help the young people that are in those programs. I think that's pretty standard in the ones I've been aware of or involved in. A really important aspect, I think, that maybe is captured or is a little more, not as obvious in here, is by going to when I think about why would we recommend a youth for the 30-day detention program, it was because often we wanted to be able to get supports in place out in the community, and the 8 days just did not give the time to be able to do that. So I think there's an element of diverting young people away from Oregon Youth Authority, because there's this, hey, we have a little more time to really work with that youth, get them prepared to go back into the community, and then line things up for them in their home communities. So I think that's a really, to me, I know we used to use it as a diversion, sort of a diversion away from the deeper end of the system. So that's another element that I think, even just having an extra 3 weeks, it really does matter. So just wanted to share that.
Melissa Gallardo, Youth Development Oregon. Sam Coe, who's our ex officio member, made a comment online as well. Sam, do you want to unmute, or do you want me to read your comment?
Okay, I can unmute myself. And then similar to like what Molly said, there will not be a second classroom for the extended detention. Those extended detention kids will be educated in the same classroom as our regular detention. Like right now, they have one classroom, so they won't be segregated out and so forth. But then, and here's a note, just this week, the teacher that was there that we visited with, she resigned, Nancy Gilbertson. So they're in the process of hiring a new teacher. Personnel changes happen all the time. So yeah, just as a side note. So even for education, those kids will not be, separated out, segregated out. They'll be with the other kids.
B.D. Lewis. So can you just talk a little bit about, because I knew what you said was right on target as far as the rationale behind the 30 days, but just a little bit about the kind of work that happens in the community or with their families during that time that they're being held, kept to prepare that transition.
You want, well, in my experience, Christina McMahon, Clackamas County, Juvenile Department, I'm gonna shorten this up every time. In my experience, there's quite a range of things. It's so individualized, related to what's going on with that young person and what's going on with that family. So for example, if family members have been the victims of the youth, that could take it in a different direction. If the family members have their own challenge, if the parents have challenges they're trying to work on or barriers that they're experiencing, I can remember, excuse me, a situation where a family was on the verge of being homeless, and it wouldn't have been a good setup for the young person to not have a stable place to live. So there had to be some work to get that shored up. There could be helping the parents or family members get connected to services in their own community. Like, so for example, parenting classes or counseling, setting up family counseling for when the youth returns. I mean, there's just such a variety of it. There could be, they talked about the school pieces.
Yeah.
But so Molly, do you have other thoughts?
Yeah, Molly Rogers with Juvenile Justice Subcommittee. Christina's spot on, and I think that there's a couple pieces that oftentimes we see youth coming into 30-day programs disconnected from education, and so it gives some time for them to reconnect with education. And one of the things that Sam and all of us around this table have been working on is really around the transition times, and so re-engagement and transition specialists are located, and it gives some time for that as well to work back with the school district that they're going to return to, and so there's now commitment to do that. The other is often substance use is involved with youth who are placed in the 30-day program, and so most of the 30-day programs have the opportunity to do assessments or different things, and Deschutes County really highlighted, they have services in their program truly around individual engagement, and they have some mentor work, and they have community organizations coming in and working with the youth. And most of the youth really are from Deschutes County. So they then can be working with the family to reconnect for the youth to go back out. So
thank you. I asked that because I really wanted to include inside the holistic nature of this. It's not just holding the kids, but trying to stop the revolving door that's actually more, can be more expensive.
Yeah, has to work.
Any additional questions?
One last question. Sorry, Jeff Parker for the record. Molly or other, could you just provide me with 3 or 4 examples of what a Class A misdemeanor is? Like what type of offenses are we talking about?
Sure. Assault in the 4th degree, where there is a physical injury, but it's not a permanent physical injury. So that is a Class A misdemeanor. Theft, 2 of over $750, I think. You have to, but it's a significant theft. The criminal trespass. So criminal trespass in the 1st degree is, it's a Class A misdemeanor. So those kind of things. So it's not, it is an offense that if we're found guilty by an adult could be incarcerated for up to 365 days. So those are examples.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions online?
I don't see any.
Are we ready to take a vote?
Yes. All right, let's do a vote. Zan Oshiro, Parsa Chanrami, sorry.
Aye.
Yoselin De La Garza. Yoselin, if you can unmute the vote, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, you're good. Jenny Glass, Janine Hartley, Celeste Jansen, Alex Johnson, Robin Johnson.
Hi.
Sam doesn't get a vote, excuse me.
Sorry.
You're on the list, but you don't get to vote. Kim Lay, Tim's still online. Kim, if you can unmute or put your vote in the chat, I think that can count. Andy Leonard. Tabidi Lewis.
Aye.
Adrian Livingston. Adrian's still online. Adrian.
She was the phone number.
Yeah, she was the phone. She might have had to drop off. Christina McMahon.
Aye.
Maricela Ortega.
Aye.
Jeff Parker.
Aye.
Savannah Relatos. Molly Rogers.
Aye.
Diana Rojas.
He's here.
Online but muted. Yep. Diana, if you can unmute to vote, that would be great. Or put your vote in the chat if you're unable to unmute. Andy Santana May, Janelle Theobald, Liz Thorne. Oh,
Wrong button. Aye.
Thank you, Liz. Kiwi Wilson. All right. That is everyone. Back to you, Maricela.
Did we get to the?
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9 votes. I can follow up with the folks who are who couldn't unmute for whatever reason. Thanks.
All right, so we'll go ahead and turn it over to Lawrence for the Title II RFA update.
So, good morning, everyone. Lawrence White, Racial and Ethnic Disparity Coordinator with the Youth Development Division, Youth Development Oregon. I'd like to briefly provide an update on the status of our fiscal year 2021-2022 request for applications for the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Title II Formula grants. So just to give you a brief timeline, we released our RFA on May 22nd of this year, and it closed on July 22nd of this year. The grants have 3 program areas: community programs and services, alternatives to detention, and delinquency and prevention. And all program areas have 2 awards available in each category. So there are a total of 6 grants available for issuance. The process and platform that we used with this RFA, it's a new process for us. We used SM Apply, which is SurveyMonkey Apply. And again, this is a new process for us and for applications to be received. So we're kind of positively working through just navigating this new terrain so we can have a more seamless process in the future, because we do intend on using this platform moving forward if it's still available to us. So all the information can be found on our website concerning this new process, concerning SM Apply, or SurveyMonkey Apply. So just, if you need more information concerning that, please visit our website, and you can really kind of get an understanding of the processes that we're using moving forward as far as our releasing of RFAs. As of right now, we have completed the initial procurement and the Youth Development Oregon eligibility review. So we passed that phase, and we're currently in the process of the grant evaluation, or the grant evaluator review. There are 5 teams of 3 reviewing up to 6 applications per team. So there's 5 teams, 3 individuals in each team, and each team reviews up to 6 applications. This process does close Monday, September 16th at 2 p.m. I do want to thank those who volunteered their time and efforts to become evaluators. Without your help and support, we cannot get this process done. So we are very appreciative and thankful for those who have committed to that work. We really appreciate it. But I also would like to take a moment to kind of remind those who are evaluators that Monday is coming. And as Christina has eloquently pointed out, we're gonna have a lot going on this weekend in the next couple of days. So if you can get them done, that would be great. So there were 27 initial applications. All of them have made it through up to this point. I say that because there are only 6 awards. So as much as we would love to provide funding for every program, that's just not realistic. So we'll see where the scoring kind of ends up. And again, we're in the grant evaluator review process, which ends September 16th at 2 p.m. Just throw that in there one more time.
That's important.
So once this process has been completed, we, Youth Development Oregon, as well as the Juvenile Justice Committee, will look at the scores and determine which applicants received the highest scores. And from there, as an agency, we should be able to decide who may receive an intent to award. Our hope is that this process can be completed as soon as possible after September 16th at 2 p.m. Because time is truly of essence for us, and we are entering the final stretch. This is a new process, and we're really trying to just provide the funding that's needed for our youth to thrive here in Oregon. So that's kind of where we are at this point. We're looking forward to the completion of this process and really awarding these grants out to these programs and just, enjoying looking at and participating in the work that they intend on doing with our youth. So are there any questions? And if not, I will pass it back to Madam Chair. Any questions?
What time are those reviews due again?
September 16th at 2 p.m.
Was that this year?
2024.
Thank you, Lori.
Brian Devon for the record, is there, Lawrence, and I probably know this, but just for the good of those around, is there a target for when we'll try to get those intents to award, basically a conditional award sent out? Like what's our target? I know that we want to do the evaluation right, so what's our goal?
If I had to be pinned down to a date,
For a week.
I would say no later than a week after September 16th at 2 p.m.
September
23rd.
If I had to be pinned down to a date.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is the RFA Workgroup update. We're about 5 or 6 minutes behind. So I'll go ahead and pass to Sally. Thank you.
Sally Deck, YDD staff. Melissa, do you have a PowerPoint to share?
I do.
And has it been shared to the council via email? Or can it be?
It hasn't been yet.
Okay, so
I can do
Let's
one or
just-
the other at the moment. Like, I can't share it and then also send it out.
let's plan on it being sent out at some point today.
Yeah.
I just have a couple of slides that I can go through faster if we don't go through all the details, but I want folks to have access to them.
Let's see if we can share that. And can everyone see that okay? Is that good?
One more slide.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if it'll advance here. There we go.
All right.
Great. Brian Dutman, Youth Development Director. I'm going to start us off. Sally's going to drive the bus primarily, but just wanted to do a little bit of upfront kind of context setting. I know Sally's worked hard on this. Paul has worked hard and provided input. I think grant managers generally have been so involved with from an internal standpoint, and then work group attendees from council members, stakeholders, other invited guests. It's just been really a strong team effort. So appreciate the attention this morning. So just want to remind all of us that we came through our 23-25 process. Sally's going to remind us here in a second about all the volume and the amount of money that was requested and the amount of money we had, so I won't do that. But we determined that it was a good opportunity for us to take a step back. We also had some parties that had levied specific complaints, and so this has come out of a need to take that step back and then develop and refine our process. So just some overarching goals for this work are as follows. One, I think throughout our history, from at least as I understand it, and certainly the 4 or so years where I've been director, our team, our grant managers have been committed to continuous improvement. So each biennium, we have looked at our request for application processes and work to refine and improve. And sometimes I think it can be a little bit like whack-a-mole. Sometimes, right, you fix one thing and then something else pops up. So be aware of that. I think it's interesting too to hear from our prevention and justice team and the work that Lawrence and the rest of the team are doing around the Title II dollars. Right, we brought many of the processes we've been doing with our sort of more our general fund dollars. We brought that over to these Title II federal dollars. Right, learning what we've learned over the years, we decided to use many of the same steps and procedures on the Title II side. Those are discretionary dollars, but having a process around how those awards are made, I think, makes a lot of sense. And it's, again, built on the work that the team has been doing over the years around requests for applications. We want to ensure a competitive and fair process for the communities, for taxpayers, for youth and families who ultimately are benefiting from the programs and services that come that are supported through the dollars. So continuous improvement, competitive and fair process. We did have a third-party review, right, that came on the heels of some of the specific concerns that were shared. And so you may recall from past meetings, there are a number of items that review identified. Sally will do some summary that will kind of identify where a change or a refinement, where it may have come from, and kind of how we're resolving it. So third-party review is something we wanted to obviously address and move forward with. And then again, just some reality around resources, right? We, going into this next biennium, 25-27, we will have less money. Again, economic forecast and what happens with our agency budget notwithstanding, we also will not have our future ready dollars, which were part of dollars in the last biennium, because those are sunsetting. Those are federal dollars that will not be available to us. So we're having to look at our grant and aid funding in some different ways, with the fact that we're going to have the federal funds specific to future ready and so on aren't there. So those are just kind of 3 kind of context setting points I wanted to make. I'm going to turn it over to Sally.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So again, Sally Deck, YDD. And so there is tiny font and a lot of data on this slide. And so that's where, if we can have it
yes,
sent out like by the end of the day today.
I was just going to let the folks in person know there are some printouts over there if your back is to the screen, or if you need one. There's a few. Awesome. Thanks, Sally. Back to you. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So this slide is really around context setting of where we were a couple of years ago, and for the 23-25 application cycle. So for the period of the grants that we're currently in, we had more than 400 applications from more than 240 organizations. And you can see there the actual awards that we gave out, but that totaled about 105 organizations got funding, and that of the approximately $80 million in requests, we were able to fund just under $30 million in total awards. So looking ahead to 25-27, we know that our funding streams and the actual amounts will be determined during the legislative session, but that we will be down that 6.7 million of Future Ready. And we don't know exactly what the other amounts will be, but that our 2023 to 2025 funding was about 14 million in community investment and about 8 million in re-engagement. Next slide, please. So again, just some context, this slide is a reminder of a slide we presented this in June, talking a little bit about our timeline. We need to have certain things done on time in order to be able to meet our goal to have our intent to awards out in July of 2025. By having our intent to awards released as soon as possible, so usually right around July, it allows for continuous programming to continue. It's especially valuable for our re-engagement programs and others that have been funded over and over. If they know in July that they are funded for the next biennium, they're able to just continue their programming. So working backwards from that, we have this timeline that you'll see up here, and that a real focus was around the development of our grant frameworks. And a lot of what that means is if we don't have the Future Ready funding, how then will we restructure the community investment grants and or the re-engagement grants to be able to continue to meet the needs of youth who have deeply benefited from our history of having funded workforce development and us needing to have a new manner in which to do that. Next slide, please. So we created this work group with the very real intention of increased transparency while also sticking to this timeline and creating opportunities for us to have this recurring touch point with council members, also with other stakeholders. That includes grantees as well as the public, those who hope to be funded in the next biennium. So really having this opportunity for dialogue in a non-binding area. The RFAs are not yet open. We're able still to incorporate feedback that we've gotten from grantees. Folks have attended these work group sessions, and we've had some really robust, animated, and informative conversations. So there are a handful of topics that are on this slide and also the next slide, and I'll go into detail on some of them. But really want to draw your attention to that we have a handful of topics that surfaced, and they surfaced from different areas, and then we came up with some solutions. So the first one around continuous improvement. Staff always see opportunities for us to improve our grant making. That can include technical assistance in the beginning sections, like where folks are trying to figure out what grant to apply to, how to navigate our application processes. So we have technical assistance that we have been giving, and so we just continue to see ways that we can do that work better, more efficiently, and to be of better service to our grantees and applicants. So you can see there kind of what we were working on doing. Also, you'll see that, so the second one there, the reconfiguring workforce grants, that the reason we need to do that is the funding is ending. And so what we're looking at right now is using some of our community investment funds and then also the statutory requirements of community investment funding to then create a workforce grant. It will live in a separate RFA, but it will be under the rules and regulations of our community investment grants. And part of the reason for that is that the re-engagement funds they have a specific definition of what youth are eligible for that funding. So we're going to use the community investment rules, regulations, and funds to create a workforce grant. We also had information from the external review around the processes of the evaluation. And if you want any of these details, I'm happy to answer questions. And also, we have recordings of the work groups. So we have the videos that are available, the slide decks are available. And so if you have curiosity about any of those details, this is all available. But I don't know that it's high level enough at this point. Anybody have questions on these points so far? Excellent. Next slide, please.
Actually,
yes, please.
So it said on that previous slide about the training that training will include a rubric guide with commonly asked questions and definitions. So have you actually started doing that training for the evaluators?
No. So, and you'll see, so this is, what slide are we on? Yeah, so this is the second slide. You'll see that there's, the rubric itself was a whole topic. So the rubric has not yet been completed, but has been updated And so that's the second point there. I'm realizing maybe I should have numbered. Anyway, the second one there, the rubric has been updated with new categories and definitions. It's now a 10-point scale with 5 categories and 2 possible scores per category. So if it's like exemplary, then that's the 9 or the 10. And so that will be, once it is like all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, then we'll be in a position to be able to start writing up the training for it, and really hoping to have greater transparency and clarity around how reviewers are assigned to the applications that they review. They will be randomly assigned. There will not be tabulation meetings. So that means reviewers won't be clustered together. That frees us up when someone has a conflict of interest, that application just gets reassigned to the next available person that is in the pool of reviewers eligible to review that RFA. So there's a bunch of work that's been done behind the scenes by staff to come up with some ideas, to then present them to the work group, have the work group offer feedback, and we've refined the rubric, we've refined what we know needs to go into the training. A lot of really valuable work has happened in these work group sessions. And being also able to be more transparent about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So the next one you'll see there is the RFA timing to reduce bottlenecks. One of the challenges that we saw in the 23-25 was that we have 400 applications come in at the same time, and every one of those applications had to be reviewed by the single point of contact in procurement in order to confirm if they met minimum qualifications. And that's around like, do they have a Secretary of State registry? Are they an eligible entity in that sense? Are they in state? Those sorts of questions. And there's one person who has to be assigned as the single point of contact. And that one person in procurement had to process all 400 applications before those applications could be put out to the pools of reviewers to even begin the review process. So we are intending right now to stagger our RFA releases. Re-engagement has the fewest changes. It's the most like lather, rinse, and repeat of our grant initiatives. So that one will be released first. Our anticipation is that will happen in spring, and then about 3 weeks later, the RFA will open for the community investment grants, not counting workforce, and then the very last one will be the workforce grants. By keeping workforce separate and last, if we do have, if federal funds come through, if the state legislature finds funds to dedicate to workforce, and if they also create additional requirements, we then have time to be responsive to that, because that RFA will be held to the last. We also want to maintain the same application windows of 60 days, giving applicants 60 days to make sure that they know what's going on, submit their application. And that's particularly important for some of our grantees, such as government entities or tribes, where they just need more folks to sign off on a grant application. And so having that 60-day window has been really important in the past, and we intend to continue that. A piece that I will get into a little bit more detail on future slides is around application limits. So this is a piece where we're looking at how many applications may each applicant submit, and then what is the level of the award, and how many total awards can an applicant organization receive in the biennium. So next slide, please. One of the things that we have recognized from continuous improvement and just from the updates of not having Future Ready, but having learned from the benefits of the Future Ready grants, is that creating some tighter guidelines and greater specificity around the age-related grants, and really looking at who shall be served by each grant. So re-engagement remains unchanged. The rules, regulations, statute require that those are 14 to 24-year-olds, and eligible youth are defined. That remains unchanged. Community investment, it's our intention to update the age range to serve 6 to 19-year-olds. And we'll have an opportunity to chat about that. Job and work readiness, updated ages of 16 to 24. And this is just related to a lot of feedback that we got from grantees around whether or not employers are game to employ 14 to 15-year-olds. as well as what we've seen from re-engagement and the information we've gotten there, that 14, 15-year-olds really have a lot of work left to do before they're in a position to have high school completion. And so by focusing the services on 14 to 15-year-olds to re-engagement and also community investment, we're hoping that there will continue to be good support of those 14, 15-year-olds. They have the opportunity to do career exploration and community investment grants, but that when they are then ready to make that step into paid work experiences, internships, credentialing, that those programs would be limited to the 16 to 24-year-old range. And that is our intention with this continuum, to also help applicants better understand where they should apply. That they get to define their program and they get to say, oh, my program really does serve 16 to 24-year-olds. Every once in a while, someone's younger sibling who's only 15 comes along, but really my program is aimed at 16 to 24-year-olds, and that helps them know that the place their application is best aligned is that job and work readiness grant instead of elsewhere. Any questions on that one? I know that was a lot.
Well, sorry, Maria here. Not really a question, but just a comment. I think what you're saying around like the 14, 15-year-olds, like trying to re-engage them in school and supporting them through community investment, I think that's spot on for the vast majority of folks. But like, for example, in my situation, connecting to employment at that time was what helped me re-engage in school. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, what do you have any suggestions for those youth who kind of need that?
100%. Mm-hmm. So we have, and I don't think that we don't have a slide on it because it's just a little bit too deep in the weeds. We have new requirements of the re-engagement grant, and we're writing requirements into the jobs grant that they must be in relation with service providers who are providing re-engagement and workforce. And that means that the re-engagement providers must be connected with, partnered with, in relationship with someone who is providing actual job training, specifically for that reason, specifically so that the 14, 15-year-olds have some connection to maybe their why. Why do they need to complete their high school diploma or GED? It is so they can do that job that they know will be waiting for them, and that is deeply incentivizing for them to have that connection from re-engagement to workforce. So absolutely, yes. And I love that you brought that up. Thank you. And also that we will require of the job and work readiness grantees to be in partnership with re-engagement programs. And that is in very specifically so that the job and work readiness grantees are intentionally targeting and serving the youth furthest from opportunity and those who most need that additional support. Anything else on that slide? I just have a couple left. Almost make up for last time. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the things that we have really tried to make sense of is how many grants should each organization get, and how do we make sense of some of our very large, very high-performing grantees who, because they're very large, they have many programs, and how do we ensure equity across the state? How do we ensure that we have as many grants as possible serving as many populations as possible? So what we're proposing right now is application submission limits that folks could have up to 2 applications in community investments, 1 in re-engagement, and 1 in the job and work readiness workforce development grant. And that each application has to demonstrate that it is different programming in the same location, or that it is the same programming that they're offering in multiple locations. And the intention really is that we recognize there are re-engagement programs that are running work readiness training, and that if they're in the same location doing the same work, that they would qualify to have multiple grants. Any questions on that part?
Okay. Brian Detman, Youth Development. I think it's important to note there ultimately are probably a handful of organizations that can do the work in all of our areas of work, right? So somebody that could do a community investment grant, kind of broad range of service, after school, summer, supporting maybe younger people, and then an organization that also can do re-engagement work in collaboration with the school district, and also potentially do the jobs and work readiness. The number of grantees that we have that can do all three of those things is not many. 3, 4, 5, not, so we're not talking about a big pool of larger grantees or larger organizations, but they exist and they do. Those that are awarded our dollars are doing important work in those communities. So with this, I think we may still see some of that, and to, I think, Sally's point, we will be able to spread out the number of organizations receiving our funds, because the vast majority of the applications we receive are actually from organizations who submit one application and are doing, focus program or services. And then again, we've got a handful who in the past have submitted multiple applications, maybe also received multiple awards. So I just understand like the sphere of this, or the scale. While again, we've got some bigger grantees. Like we've got some that have multiple grants and are receiving, 6 figures, maybe even 7, or a couple, 2 that are receiving 7 figures. The majority of our grantees are actually more, or are on a smaller scale. So we're trying to find the ability to serve those grantees that may submit 1 or 2 applications, and be sensitive to an organization that, hey, if you can do all 3, we have these limitations in place. We're not going to make everybody happy, but just wanted to say that out loud. Sorry.
I don't know if I'm near a mic or anything.
They should be able to hear you online.
Okay.
Thanks, Robin.
Robin Johnson. Just a question. I know late last year into this year, Marion Memorial Trust was doing a lot of work around encouraging some collaboration opportunities between different organizations, and sometimes it was like encouraging a larger organization to support an emerging organization, or 2 emerging organizations who had some complementary strengths and opportunities. And I'm just wondering, is there a place for that within our grant processes?
There actually is. Excellent question. So we have a re-engagement collaborative grant that lives separate from these 3 grants. And the re-engagement collaborative grant is, we've kind of carved the state into about 4 areas. And we have 5 grantees over those 4 areas, because we have 2 in the metro area. And they are co-hosting with us convenings that happen twice a year. And at those convenings, each grantee that has a re-engagement or workforce grant is required to attend. So right now that is re-engagement plus Future Ready plus the handful of workforce grants we have within community investment already. Those folks, about somewhere between 70 and 80, Jared, do you know how many grantees?
Exact number, I don't know. I think it's in the 70s.
Yeah, between 70 and 80 grantees come together in these convenings, and it has been wildly fruitful. It has been so helpful. And there is an element, I think, to our requirement of their attendance. Like, it's in the grant agreement. They must attend these convenings. And it seems that everyone appreciates that everyone else is required to attend. Yeah. That each one seems to come to the convening with some real enthusiasm, but especially enthusiasm around everyone else being at the table. And we've seen some solid partnerships form, and even just conversations that allow for a warm handoff for a youth who is maybe outgrown one program and they're ready to take the next step. And that when the service providers or the EDs or anyone in between knows a place where that youth can go and can then be the person to metaphorically or figuratively walk with that youth to the next place, it has been very helpful for our grantees to know each other. So the convenings, the next set will happen in October, and then we'll have the spring ones in April. Those will continue and have been very useful. And they live separately from these 3 grants, and at the same time, there is a requirement that they connect. Tabidi has a question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, and forgive me for my inability to
Tell us your
get my
name.
head around.
What's your name?
Tabidi Lewis. So under the application limitations, each application must demonstrate. And this is the second bullet point, arrow point, same programming for different youth populations in different geographically named service areas. I'm trying to understand that and
like an example of that?
Yeah, and why? Why is this?
So we have, right now, there's a workforce development grant that is, the grantee is the Oregon Alliance of YMCAs. And the program is a lifeguard certification program. And it is being run a couple times per year out of most of the YMCAs in the state. So each one of those cohorts is about $15,000 to run. So if you imagine you've got a YMCA in Albany, a YMCA in Eugene, and a YMCA in Grants Pass, each one of those YMCAs gets funded by this one overarching grant. And that's where we would say that it's the same programming, it's lifeguarding certification, but it's being offered to distinctly different, not different demographics, there's functionally the same demographics, but they're in a different area, right? So that's where we see that it is useful for us to have one big grant awarded to an organization that can then fund programs in multiple locations.
So this is to keep them different, the same organization in different areas from applying, but just apply for one and then they need to work together is what you're saying.
We don't require that they work together, but they would, if one of the YMCAs applied and they said, we're one little tiny YMCA and we want to run 2 lifeguarding cohorts over the course of 2 years, and each one of those cohorts will serve 15 to 20 youth, that is likely to be a not very competitive grant. But when the overarching alliance says, we're going to serve hundreds of youth in multiple locations over the next 2 years, then that's when it's a pretty competitive grant that has also has proven to work well. So that's just an example. Oregon Alliance of, that's their name, of Boys and Girls Clubs has a similar kind of structure that they have a program that they roll out in multiple locations, and in doing so, there is, we recognize the merit, reviewers seem to recognize the merit in having that like umbrella organization with satellite locations.
So we're helping facilitate that umbrella structure or suggesting that should happen. What if they're not communicating, but it's viable?
Absolutely not required. Absolutely, it is not required that they do any of that. If the satellites want to apply, absolutely they can. But if they want to work together, they are allowed to work together in these instances.
You don't encourage or suggest it might be.
No, because I guess the flip side of it would be an organization that has one location, but they have multiple programs in their one location. That also has functioned well, and there's not reason for us to limit that.
Go ahead. No, you go. Okay, so I'm gonna go off, what's your name? Molly Rogers. I'm gonna take off your question a little bit and maybe drill down a little bit. If I look back at the slide.
Sorry, right as I stopped.
The slide is around application limitations. And so is that each application must demonstrate, is that for agencies that have applied for more than one grant? So if I'm just a YMCA, not just, if I'm a YMCA in Wasco County applying for just one grant, that I'm not kind of really looking at this slide because I'm not bumping up against the application limitation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, because I got confused.
Are you, Robert Johnson, are you able to clarify that so that people so an individual site is going onto our website to figure out what they can apply for, and they're just seeing what opportunities fit for them? Is that what you're naming? Is that?
So I'm naming, if I'm an Molly Rogers, if I'm a large entity that has typically applied for 4 or 5 grants in the past, or 5 or 6 grants in the past, what I'm reading now is when I go to the website and I get ready to apply, I need to do some prioritization at my agency, not county, to say, okay, as my big agency, I can only apply for 2 community investment grants, 1 re-engagement and 1 job readiness. But I have programs all over the state. So if I am gonna do those 2 applications, but I'm gonna pull little satellites into it, in my 2 applications, I need to be able to articulate either distinct different programming in 1 location, in those 2 applications or the 1 application, or I need to be able to articulate that I am doing it in different geographical areas in that application. That's what is that how I'm reading this slide? So this is really asking the grantees to prioritize what they're asking for very specifically from Youth Development Oregon's grants. That's what is that what am I articulating that right? Okay.
Yeah, so, go to me. So that's what I'm saying. If I'm small and I see this and I say, I must demonstrate programming for different youth populations and different geographically, I may read in my inability to think critically, right? I'm just saying me.
Yes.
Go, oh, well, I've got to show all this, but I'm just.
No, if you are a single if you're a little organization and you serve 1 little group of people in 1 location, you can just apply just like that.
So it's very distinctly saying if you're a huge organization.
I totally see how you're reading this.
You see what I'm saying?
I see that one way to read this would be that every application must provide programming in more than 1 location or provide more than 1 kind of programming, and that is not what we mean.
So then I'll say I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Or I don't think I qualify.
See, and this is why we have the work group conversations. I wish you'd mentioned.
I apologize. All this time. But this is where my English background comes in.
I love it. So, thank you. No,
so
and very earnestly, that like what we want is greater transparency and greater clarity for the organizations that are trying to apply. And you just absolutely like brought this highlight of if you are a small organization providing service, providing 1 program in 1 location, we also welcome that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's Robin Johnson. I just want to say, I think Tabitha and I were on the same page. Like, what are we saying here, and is it clear? And the other layer I'll add, and I don't know if it's our role or responsibility, but to help even the larger entities recognize you may have a small satellite that you're not including in your grant application, so maybe be mindful of them, and vice versa, because in other settings I have seen the lack of transparency and an entity or funder saying, oh, this, YWCA has 5 grants in. They're clearly not communicating with one another. We're just gonna pick the top 2 best. And they don't recognize why the 3 got not, denied for funding. And so if there's clarity around, hey, if you have satellite locations, are you conversing with one another to make sure you're not competing for the same dollars, or at least you're collaborating and clear, or maybe the larger entity says, you know what, you're right, small entity, you go for those funds, Deschutes County, go for those funds, Multnomah County will sit back this year, or like whatever it may be. I just wonder how we can provide within our scope, not without our scope, but just like within our scope, some clarity around.
Yeah, no, I think so. Recognizing the time and wanting to make sure that I don't stand between you and the lunches that I know just got delivered. We will, when we have most of our ducks in a row, which should be by December, we will then be able to kind of go on tour, so to speak, to have funding opportunity previews, and which is the name Cord made up yesterday, just so you know whether. Because what we want is to very clearly say, this is when you organizations can come ask us questions about how to apply and where to apply and for how many dollars they can apply. And so I love what you just brought up, and also you, Tabitha, that we will then have like the FAQs, and that we can include that in the FAQs so that an alliance of satellites is not competing with the individual satellites that may also want to apply. And so we'll just add that to our list. In the interest of time, I'll just note that you have the printed version, and those of you online will get the digital version, that we also have some limits, financial limits to the amount of dollars that the awards will be, and that there is an entire work group conversation, slide deck, and video that is available on our website for you to get into the details around that. So if you just want to pop it, Melissa,
we have one comment from a few minutes ago from Liz Thorne.
Oh, excellent.
Liz, if you want to unmute, thank you.
Oh, I mean, my comment is old now at this point, but I think I appreciate the conversation around application limits. My initial read of it, and I appreciate the conversation that's happened over the last couple of minutes, was the way I read that as an intention to try to spread the resources around even more. And so we might have these larger entities that are doing really excellent, great work, and also probably have more internal capacity for grant writing that makes them more likely to be able to apply multiple times for funding and to potentially receive that funding. So I appreciate the conversation, and I do think just being super clear and transparent that these new limits don't unintentionally inhibit smaller entities from applying. So I think that's a really helpful conversation. So I appreciate this conversation, because I have reflected in looking at who we're funding. It's like, oh, I'm seeing similar entities across these grants multiple times for multiple years, and just makes me curious. So appreciate the conversation and the work done.
Thanks, Liz. Shall we? Yeah, let's go back to the slide deck, and just so that we have some context on the record for those who watch this afterwards. So let's go to the next slide. Brian can speak to this as well, but we had a lot of really deep conversations with folks about the grand total amount that any single organization can receive for the biennium, and also recognizing that different types of grants, it makes sense for them to have different amounts of awarded dollars. So again, this applies only to the grants that are listed: community investment, re-engagement, and that job and workforce readiness. So this does not apply to other grants that YDO gives out. When we look at returning YDO grantees, we're talking about folks who have been funded by us in about the last 5 years, who have been and also remain in good standing with YDO and ODE. And that when we look at the column on the left, that we're looking at returning grantees who are providing direct services to youth, who are providing, who are already running the programming, and who are able to provide full participant level data. So we're talking personally identifiable information about the youth to whom they are providing direct services. And so then skipping over the one in the middle, when we look at the one on the right-hand side, anyone, returning grantee or a new grantee, who is providing like a pilot program or a startup program, summer programs that are maybe system level change, or otherwise the organizations the programs that don't collect data on a participant level, those grantees would be limited to about $150,000. They ask for less, they can. So these are some of the distinctions that we're trying to make, that we know that there are organizations running solid programming that are where they want to pilot something new, and that we appreciate that, and also that we will reserve the higher grant award amount to those organizations running programs that are up, running, providing direct services to youth, and able to collect that participant level data, so that we can do the adequate storytelling around what the impact is for those grants.
Robin Johnson, when you say full participant data, what does that mean? Like, at what level are we talking about information about these?
Name, address, birthday, demographic information around race, ethnicity, gender. We're also looking for involvement in the foster care system, whether or not they're a re-engaged youth, if they have experiences with homelessness, that level.
So that we can track if people are going through different systems, like what's the intention or purpose, Robin Johnson?
A lot of purposes. The biggest, maybe overarching umbrella one though, is so that we can tell the story of the impact of YDO dollars. Also, justice involved youth is another one of the big categories where we're collecting the data of who these programs serve. So that column in the middle is for organizations that are brand new to YDO, or who were funded way back in the way back. So not just in the last couple biennium, but way back, that they were maybe funded by us then, or that they're brand new, and that they are providing services directly to youth, and that they have the program up and running, and that they can provide full participant data. So by limiting that category of awards to $200,000, we are creating opportunities for new organizations to get to know us and our data requirements, and also creating opportunities for folks who we haven't ever funded before. Any other questions on the award amounts?
I appreciate the conversation. We are obviously going over time, and that's good, great. This is valuable questions and input. These are Brian Detman. Where's my name? Yeah, see, Christina, I got it in. We will bring these ideas to you in December for approval. So just want to remind you, you're helping us refine and make sure we're articulating things correctly. So just wanted to say that, like, we will have additional work group meetings, and we're gonna bring this to you now so you can kind of see our progress, and we can get this feedback from the council in the meeting today. And then in December, we actually bring a more process for approval. So I just wanted to remind you of that. And again, we're short on time, so back to you, Sally.
Melissa, let's advance to the next slide. And then this is just kind of a reminder slide of where we love all of your input, your opinions, your thoughts. These are the questions that we have posed to the work groups. And there's no limit to when you respond to this. You do not need to do this right this moment. And that we have had stakeholders watch our videos, the work group videos, and then email us afterward to say, hey, recently we just got an email saying, hey, we really like the age range change because we're having a hard time finding any employers who will work with our 14-year-olds. The employers are saying they want the youth to be 16. And so somebody was just voicing their support. They had watched the video after the fact, and we took that to note. So if you have thoughts, we welcome them for many weeks, months to come.
I'll just offer mine now. Robin Johnson. I wonder if for this last limit around award ranges, there's any programming that might not collect full participant data. I wonder if there's a caveat for if there's a rational reason for why they may not provide that data, because what I'm hearing is it makes us look good to have the data, but I wonder if there's a protective factor for youth for why some of that. So I think that an asterisk around where there may be, like, if someone can provide some rationale as to why that data is not provided, that we may consider there for other award limits would feel a little bit more accessible and a little bit more inclusive. If there's more rationale besides making us look good and being able to track the data, I may be able to get a little bit more behind strict award limits. But if it's just about making us look good, I'm just a little less bought in personally. And that's just I'll just offer, that's the feedback I have right now.
Yeah, no, I think that you make a really good point of what is the cost to the youth who are served to provide that data, and where do we allow for some data to be optional? So LGBTQIA youth have, like that is one of the data points that was, within Future Ready, there was a very strong hope that that would be a priority population that would be served with those funds. And also that can be a very sensitive subject. And so we made that an optional, you could opt in to reporting that, and they also could opt out of reporting that. And then one of the other things that we're looking at is how can we name how can we highlight the organization or the program? So we know that we have some programs that exclusively serve youth who are in the foster system, or exclusively serve youth who are in the juvenile justice system or otherwise impacted. And that if the program can identify that all of their youth check a box, then that may be a place where we have a little bit more leeway around their data collection. And that is another piece. I invite everyone to come to all of the work group meetings, but particularly around data collection. What data will we collect? And what level of sensitivity will we require the grantees to provide to us? All right, so that was a really dynamic conversation. I really appreciate you all.
Okay, so Marisol Ortega here. We'll go ahead and move our strategic planning until after our Grantee Spotlight. Is it okay for us to still take a break?
Yeah,
I'll take a break and get our lunches.
Yeah, I think we'll break and grab lunch, and then we'll cord, just so you know, we'll pick you up around 12.
After 12:30.
12:40.
Yeah.
And we appreciate our guests from Marion County, so just give us a few minutes to get some food, and then we'll be back at the table. So go quickly.
Great, I'm gonna pause the recording.
Okay.
That's the reason.
Yeah. World.
I know. We haven't had a thing.
Well, that is
All right. Okay, perfect. She's set.
Right.
Oh.
I just wanted to try it and I leave it.
Oh.
All right, we're coming back together.
We need a gavel. Yes, but I left it in the other room.
Oh, you found, no, I feel so weird.
It is your, all right, just for Brian.
Thank you.
Yes, I need to be gaveled.
All right. So for our Grantee Spotlight today, we have Marion County Family Support Program. Thank you all for coming today. We're super excited to hear what we have to share.
Thank you for having us. My name is Jeremy Casman. I'm the Program Supervisor with Marion County Juvenile. Travis Pritchard, I'm a Family Support Specialist with the department and program.
David Gonzalez, Family Support Specialist.
We have one additional Family Support Specialist who wasn't able to attend today, Kevin Brockman. From that, we're familiar with how much you guys are aware of the kind of juvenile justice system and how it's kind of broken down. We're here in Marion County, so we're serving youth and families involved in the criminal justice or juvenile justice system and residing in the community here. We have a number of different programs that are fairly traditional as far as what you'd expect from a juvenile department, as far as supervision being done by RPOs. We also have a detention facility, which is at 32 beds, I believe, capacity. We also have some other additional programs which family support program falls under, and where we're working with and providing services to youth and families as well. Family support program is primarily funded through grant money, which we appreciate you guys' support with. And funds our position, our program. We have primarily serving youth 10 to 14 with the 3 full-time positions.
Would you like me to?
Yes, please.
My name is Travis Pritchard. Make sure I'm on the audio. Our program is obviously funded by you folks. It's every county gets funding, I believe, and this is how Marion County chooses to use the funding that you provide for each county. The purpose of our program is to be a prevention program to identify younger people and younger youth than the average youth we serve, and try to provide an intervention for them at the family level, not just as just the youth, but the whole family unit. Currently, we have 3 family support specialists that work the whole county. We are serving 9 to 13-year-olds predominantly throughout our program, even up to about 14. They do not need insurance to access our program, which is a major feature of the program. In fact, it's been noted by our commissioners, and we've been provided extra support and an extra position based on that, because there's been a lot of barriers for families to get services based on having OHP versus private insurance. We serve the community through 3 different kind of referral concepts and how children are referred to our program. We get referrals through police. As most people know, most juvenile departments aren't usually going to adjudicate 9-year-olds. So in our system, we do take those police reports. We do address that, and it's through our family support program. We also get kids referred to us by community members, schools, different social service entities. They will have a family that has some complex issues, conduct issues, and are basically in need of more supports, and they will refer the family to us. We also get cold calls at our department. Our department doesn't always field calls through our intake on matters that are not necessarily through police or adjudication, but people will just call saying, I'm having problems with my kid, I don't know what to do with them. And a lot of those calls are directed towards us regardless of age, and we provide the ability to identify services or ways for them to get more support within our community. And a lot of times those cold calls are after they've called other agencies and have gotten a response that says, we only do this, we don't know how to help you. Whereas we kind of do we're aware of all the agencies in town, we'll point you in the right direction instead of just leave you hanging with no response. Once they are referred to us, we go through a screening process where we use the JCP as an assessment tool to assess for risk. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the JCP, but in that tool it identifies kids being low, medium, high, and high risk, and any child that is assessed at medium or higher risk automatically qualifies for a program. We then immediately from day one start providing some kind of options for them, knowing after hearing their story in the intake process. So as we don't usually start working with them right away and they go to a wait list, we at least start giving them some resource information to start the process of finding more support for their needs. The wait list can vary greatly. It used to be a lot shorter. Since COVID, we've been up to about a year long on the wait list at times because there's only 3 of us serving the whole county. So it's been, unfortunately, not enough of us to serve what the community and the families in the community needs are. Once they're off the wait list, we then usually provide about 9 months of service where we're using evidence-based tools. Some of the tools we use are the family checkup, which is an assessment tool to assess the family. And then we follow that with everyday parenting curriculum. And this was this model was actually developed at U of O, and we've all been trained to use that model. We also are using a lot of skills work with the kids around cognitive behavioral therapy type skill sets. We're doing emotional regulation, social skills, problem solving skills, and all kinds of things like that. But that really is a lot of the initial skills work we do with the family. Is so much more we're actually doing, especially in this day and age where the acuity of issues and the needs of the families are much greater than they've been previous to this. We're seeing a lot of needs around housing, a lot of houseless people that are identified and coming to us, basic needs around food, just even basic connections to get IDs. There's a lot of pretty intense basic needs that we're dealing with at this time. And so unfortunately, a lot of our initial services are usually pointed towards immediate basic needs and safety for the families. We also do a lot of brokering with other agencies and doing our best to involve other agencies because we really utilize a lot of the protective factors from the JCP and are trying to address those protective factors with the families. And so a lot of our efforts are to build that village, and we're trying to bring education, mental health, DHS, and different entities that have a role in our community to support these families into play. There's a lot of work around faith-based involvement, extracurriculars, and all the other different protective factors that we're identifying necessary for these kids to successfully develop. Most of the work we do is not at the juvenile department. We are out in the community addressing these people where they're at in their homes. I think that's the value in Marion County for what we're doing, is that a lot of agencies are kind of waiting people to come through their door, and we actually chase and are well known within the community that we chase these families, which is a really, unfortunately, a necessary tool to engage the people and the needs that they have, because a lot of the people we're dealing with have very traumatic histories, and not just from a physical or sexual traumas. They're traumatized by systems. So they are not seeking help from systems that have made them feel guilty or less than or confusing or feel like there's too many barriers to engage. And a lot of our work is to try to help them through those barriers. We have lots of examples where the systems aren't always really making it easy for them to get their needs met and engage them, especially with some of the very basic disabilities that some of these families are challenged with. So once our 9 months are up, we obviously end up closing these clients, but I know me personally, one of the factors we really try to provide for them is that we're always a support for these families. We never really go away. So they're always able to contact us, ask questions, have us stop by and do check-ins, anything else they need going forward. We really put in a lot of effort now not to cut off that relationship, knowing that these families don't have a lot of relationships or healthy relationships and need continued support. They need a village. And so we're doing better about not really cutting them off from us with the end of services, but trying to maintain some kind of support long-term for them if they're a willing participant. I have a mom that a year and a half ago, I've ended services, she still checks in with me. So that's kind of what our service looks like as far as what we're providing for the community. A lot of the work in the community is partnering too. We have very strong relationships with the schools. We do a lot of meeting in the schools with families. We're on school teams, we're on wraparound teams. There's CERT teams that are getting together. We provide support or even information because we get to know the families so well. We're working with mental health and constantly trying to stay up to date on what is available for these families, and not just even in our county, but other counties as well, because there are times I have gotten calls from out of county and I'm researching county resources to them and giving them information, even though they're not a Marion County person. And even if someone's in another county, but their kid attends school in our county, we still address their needs and still try to provide services for them. So we're not just this kind of black and white, you live here and we're not going to help you. We're just kind of saying to the community, we're here for you, regardless of living here or not. We'll provide information if you need it. A lot of the community resources seek us because the families we are dealing with are really existing within between the silos in our systems. And the siloed systems have a lot of barriers and bottleneck a lot of people trying to get into them. So a lot of the work is trying to address them where they're at prior to things getting worse, and support them and get them back to a spot of at least being safe and halfway functional, and then obviously then build a team from that standpoint. You guys have anything else to add? That's kind of a quick overview.
I think one of the things that we've seen quite an increase of is the availability of marijuana, the vape pens, and those sort of things. We're seeing that in younger youth. So we're also developing, part of our position is with Kevin developing the opportunity for him to become a certified drug and alcohol counselor. So we'll be able to also be able to offer assessments and some treatment for some of the populations that again don't fit within the more traditional delivery systems, right? I think one of the things we're seeing right now, and Travis really highlighted on, is this access dependent on what your insurance coverage is. I know the state has invested very heavily in OHP and getting a lot of people covered under that. We're finding it's actually more difficult for folks that have private insurance to be able to access services, or even those folks that are completely uninsured being able to get those services. So that's one of the areas. The other areas we're seeing, we're getting referrals for kids that are getting younger and younger. So I think another one of our focuses is building partnerships with some of the elementary schools within our service area, and being able to identify youth earlier before we get into this report and get it referred in. So. Is there any questions? I brought it up. Also brought a handout, right? I didn't want to bog down the presentation with a bunch of numbers and data, but it provides some information on the folks that we work with, both the youth and the families. What are some of our outcome measures, and what are some of the things that we're looking at to determine if we're being effective or not.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Jeremy Casimir.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Very nice to meet you. I'm Christina McMahon. I'm a council member, and I'm the director of the Clackamas County Juvenile Department and president of our Oregon Juvenile Department Directors Association. So 25 years ago, I was a juvenile court prosecutor in Marion County and worked and helped get kids into your program because it was just so incredible that we even had that resource that long ago when other counties just didn't have that. So I'm a big fan of this, and I happen to also be a resident of Marion County. I live in Sept. So it makes me, as a member of this community and the bigger community of juvenile justice, I guess, really excited about the work that you're doing. Molly is down there, and I know she's grinning because we used information about your program a couple of years ago. The Oregon Juvenile Department Directors Association brought a bill to try to have an actual age requirement before young people could have a case filed in delinquency court. And one of the pushback that we got was, wow, there aren't any, if we take away the ability to charge a 10-year-old in juvenile court, then that means they won't get any services. So we asked Troy, hey, share your information about that program. Unfortunately, we didn't get out of committee and we weren't able to pass that bill, but the model that you've developed is a really wonderful way. I really think we should be lobbying, and we're not done with that. We're not done with that one because you said it. You're seeing more and more younger kids get dragged into the system. The hydraulics of the lack, it's all over the media. We don't have adequate behavioral health resources for anybody, let alone little kids. So the only place that always has to take kids is juvenile detention. So when there's no other resource, when younger kids are really escalating, they end up getting pulled into our system, and it's really, we're setting their life trajectory when we drag them in at 9, 10, 11 years old into our system. So what you're doing is, you don't even know that there's people behind the scenes trying to really leverage the great work that's been going on in Marion County in this program for so many years. So I don't have a question. I just want more of what you do for every county in the state so that all kids have access, families have access to this. And you talked about the problem with private insurance. That comes up. Molly is very actively involved in work related to that. I mean, and I don't want to speak for Molly, but that's you're just really filling an important gap, but when I hear you say sometimes a 1-year waiting list, we need to make sure that we're funding programs like this so that there isn't a 1-year waiting list, so you can get out there and help more people. But anyway, so big fan, so happy that you're here. Thank you for what you're doing for families in this community, and hopefully we can copycat you.
Appreciate the support.
Yeah. Hello, Lawrence White, YDD Staff and Recreation Acting Disparity Coordinator. So my question does center around the behavioral health and the resources. You mentioned the mental health aspect. And like Christina mentioned, the resources are low, minimal, for the state of Oregon, unfortunately. So who do you actually work with? Are they private practice, or are they government entities? How do you find those resources in such an area, such an environment where there are?
I personally, obviously, I've worked in the field for 20 years, so I mean, I have a lot of relationships with different mental health resources. My background is mental health, actually. So from children's behavioral health options, new perspectives in town, all the major OHP therapy shops, I mean, we're very aware of them, and always having to stay up to date because of different programs expanding or contracting within our area. I use online websites like Psychology Today to seek individual therapists that take certain insurances or that have certain specialties, whether it's around LGBTQ plus and those populations, or teenage versus younger kids, play therapy, equine therapy. I just recently helped a family get their teenager into a weekly equine therapy place out in Independence, and it wasn't in Marion County, but we went online, we found something that kind of seemed to fit this family, and got them hooked up with it. So, I mean, you're right, it's a lot, and we don't always have a personal relationship with everyone, but we do the footwork to find what's out there and ensure these people get that resource information and help them apply for these resources. I don't know if any of you have tried to apply for housing in the last 30 days, but when I look at the cognitive disabilities and I look at the trauma and the service traumas that these people have, I mean, an 18-page application with all your IDs, it's a Mount Everest for some of these families. And so, they need a lot of support, and it's hard to ask for support when there's a shameful piece to it, when they know they're struggling and they don't always want everyone to know that part of their story, so partnering with them at their level, really trying to appreciate who they are and where they're at, and see them for what they are and they can be. It's really important in this field because in our throwaway society, these are marginalized people that a lot of people would just rather turn a blind eye to than try to figure out how to help. So.
I think to go into greater detail, to these guys' credit, that may be printing off forms and going to their homes to fill them out and making sure they have all the information that they need, and then meeting them at the different agencies so that they have an ally when they are partnering with somebody new, right? I can't count the number of hours these guys have spent, whether that be a PCC or that are not getting for DHS trying to get services, right? Oftentimes this is the skill set's just not there. So having somebody come in and offering to come in and assist with it, make sure that you're following up. So if there is additional information that needs to be turned in, that's happening, right? So it's kind of making that full circle all the way around, identifying the need and then making sure that need's been addressed, so that we can move on to the next stage, prioritizing and go from there. As far as the mental health services, I must say Marion County are really fortunate, right? Children's behavioral health has just expanded their services to, if we get the paperwork in, we can have a child seen either the same day or next day. OHP really opens a lot of doors for these youth and families to get in. A lot of our drug and alcohol bridgeways, another great community partner. So we're blessed in that way. The juvenile department also has on staff 2 full-time mental health counselors, which provide mental health services to those that are underinsured or have insurance or the wait list for too long. Right? experience. So opening that door, trying to remove some of those barriers so that youth aren't staying on probation longer than they need to. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that's very explicit. Thank you so much.
I think, I don't want to identify myself, Brian, because it tells you how long I've been here, but I remember you coming into our old house when we first started our program. David Gonzalez, Marion County Juvenile Department, but Lorenzo, in reference to your question, yeah, we're a government entity, but we work like a nonprofit, if you understand what I mean. I mean, we beg, borrow, and steal. We do. We build relationships with every resource out there because it does help when you have an 18-month waiting list for housing to have that one connection that these guys aren't even in a pod right now, they're in a car. Can we get them somewhere in the next 72 hours? So we do things like that, and I think it's very important. Everybody understands coming out of the pandemic, some of the things, the repercussions we've seen with youth, the referral rate has gone way younger. I mean, we've developed a SBU 12 program, sexualized behavior for kids under 12, because of those things going on that were, they've always been happening, but they've magnified and multiplied during the pandemic. So we started a committee with that to address those behaviors. Like Jeremy said, we've recently hired Kevin that's gonna become CADC qualified, because honestly, as adults, we failed to see what the repercussions were gonna be when we legalized marijuana with the younger kids. It's no longer grandpa's cigarette, they're smoking, it's mom's joint, you know. I don't know how many 9 and 10-year-olds I got how many times do you smoke weed? I don't know. And it's hard for us to wrap our heads around that, of a 10-year-old smoking more than 30 or 40 times marijuana. So that's why we have that position, you know. Jeremy also mentioned mental health. I would love if we could get the funding to bring on a mental health person just for our program, because it's more than needed. It's just, you know, we need to get that help too soon. And parents come to us because they want help, and we say, okay, that's great, but you need to wait a little while, you know, and it's tough. And so I'm glad that we build those relationships with these local resources, but yeah, we still need a little bit more help on that stuff. Any other questions, guys?
I'm not gonna make a question, but I want everybody else to ask. Before I'll let people ask first.
Nope. Brian Dutton, youth development. And you maybe answered it, because I was hearing the wait list piece, and I was wondering, what if there's an urgent situation or young person, whether it's behavior or suicidal ideation or just threats? How do you triage? How do you say, we have a year-long waiting list, but if we don't do something now, it's maybe too late. So maybe it's a little in the weeds, but like, how do you manage that?
I think one of the things that we'll look at is the referral source. Where's that referral coming from? And then looking at, okay, can we get them in for a screening? That screening is going to provide information around where are the priority needs, right? And having some flexibility in saying, hey, this needs some attention now, right? This isn't a youth that we can put on the wait list and wait and hope that they're going to be in the same space when we get to them as when they were at screening. I think some of those other areas that you're bringing up, the suicidality or the mental health, if they're in crisis, right, that's that piece of being able to get them immediately assessed for that need, right? That's not something that we're going to be equipped to be able to address. That's going to need to be a new provider. Also probably a referral source out if they need a higher level of care component that goes along with that. But I can think of a couple of different cases that both these guys' caseloads and where we've got the referral says, no, we need to touch this one now, right? And going from there. Sometimes that's with a really young kid. Maybe that's just someone who we haven't seen the referral just yet, but man, there's all kinds of warning signs. The dots just weren't connected to get them into come and see us. So in that way, the other one, again, knowing that our wait list is what it is being able to see how do we get connected to some of the other services to meet some of those needs while we're waiting to engage them. And hopefully they're in a better spot to be able to engage them. I will say that a lot of our time is spent trying to chase down families. And that is kind of goes to where Travis's point is they've been traumatized by systems, right? They hear, here, we're here to help. No, thank you, right? We don't even get to know thank you. So it's just ghosted, no response. So I think the other piece is being able to establish contact and maintain contact throughout our process will help us be able to deliver services in a more efficient way. Love to add a position as far as the case aid that can work with families and make sure they're still kind of following up on these things. So that we're having the reports are getting built. So when we do have that opening, we hit the ground running. Appreciate that.
I think David Gonzalez, Marion County Juvenile. Brian, in response to your question also, I have a youth right now, it's 11 years old, that has been at PCC 4 times in the last 30 days. At PCC, are you guys familiar with PCC? It's the psychiatric. And so that tells you how bad, that's pretty severe.
How many times?
4 times in the last 30 days. And that's 4 times, 11 years of age. Pretty severe. So because we built those relationships that I was explaining to Lorenzo earlier, is that, so we got them into MB-RAP. I have a meeting actually here in about 20 minutes on the youth. We have about 5 referrals out there right now. 3 have already been denied because of the behaviors are so severe. But this is what we're dealing with out in the community. This is nationally, because I just came back from Texas not too long ago, and some of my relatives that are in the same field I am are dealing with the same thing. And so I kind of would love if we're going to start becoming that leader of how to handle this stuff. You know, and it kind of ties in with what we were talking about earlier. Can we start forming, I know your favorite word is committees because it means work, but can we start forming something to start moving forward? Because that's nationally, we're stagnant. We're stagnant, and that's in every state of this country right now.
Yeah. Molly Rogers, in Wasco County, Wasco County Department of Youth Services have been in the business since before there was a split between CSD and before there was a creation of Services to Children and Families and the Oregon Youth Authority. The reminiscence of the days of what we used to call Level 7. And so what I really want to say is there is hope. We're just moving forward with starting an assessment center. Clackamas County has the only current assessment center in the state that's 24 hours. That's a lot of what you guys are talking about, is that early onset. And really there's conversations going around. So I think not necessarily a work group, but maybe some alliance and conversations to really look at what is needed. Because when we're talking about mental health and behavioral health, there are systems out there. Unfortunately, they're hard to access. And more departments are hiring CADCs and mental health, just like you guys are, because the whole notion of insurance and billing is really hard. So I just really applaud. You know, we've heard often recently that Oregon is one of the highest incarceration rates in the state, in the United States, of youth. These are the services and the programs that are invested in our local communities that prevent that from happening. And so I just really applaud and thank you guys for doing it. And Christina's right. We've used your program a couple different times without your knowledge to brag around the state.
Well, Troy knew.
To brag around the state of what does early intervention and where should monies be invested through all the systems, through OIA, through DHS, through Oregon Health Authority, is it needs to be at the community level. So I just thank you guys for doing that.
We probably gotta wrap up to move behind schedule.
Any other meetings we got?
And you guys did a meeting, there you go.
Yeah.
You're welcome to stay, we understand where you go.
Thank you for having us.
Are you ready to be a conference next week? Awesome. Yeah, we're having education people come. That's amazing.
It'd be nice to.
If we want to contact you, we we're back online or we have.
Hey, wait, let's give our guests a round of applause.
Thank you all. I'm like when I click there, contact information. I absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
request.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with that in person.
Thank you.
It's really clear that's what we're at, right? Yeah. And so, this is a small sample size of really remarkable problem and issues. You know, this sort of wealth disparities, lack of investment.
Coming back to your.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
We should be able to.
All right, we're gonna get Cord up, I believe. Cord, you got 2 minutes.
I can do it in 2 minutes. It'll be very clipped though. Can I take 5?
Yeah, I'm messing with you, Cord.
Can we hear it? Let's see if we have the volume.
Closer to you, Melissa, on the bottom.
It's, all right, thank you.
Oh, is that one?
Whoa, let's see.
Oh, you're right, Melissa, because.
That's so cool.
Sorry, why did, the retreat thing is gonna actually happen as a part of this. So.
Yeah, so we're good.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see if that's too high.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Coming through clear, great. Well, I will try to keep it tight since I know we're running low on time. My name is Cord Bucher.
Yeah, we have until about 1 o'clock when we get the folks from NYEC on.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll keep an eye on that. Thank you. I'm Cord Bucher. I'm the Deputy Director for Youth Development Oregon, and I'm going to give everyone an update on our work on strategic planning. We'll go ahead and jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is both the summary of the things that I'll talk about, also kind of a rough sort of order of operations over the next few months. I'm going to mostly share today some progress that we've made on a draft structure for the strategic plan. I'll be sharing a little bit of what we brought to the council last quarter and showing you how we've kind of applied that to start building out what the plan may look like. We are going to talk a little bit about a possible work group meeting in late October. We are also going to share about plans for a retreat for the annual YDC retreat in November. I'll let Brian talk a little bit more about that when we get there. And then just long term, the plan is to get the strategic plan drafted and then begin communication with community partners and tribal nations on that draft plan early next year and really look to do final plan adoption in March 2025. I think in previous conversations, we've talked about a goal of adoption in December. I think that for 2 reasons that doesn't really make a lot of sense right now. One is that I think we'll have a lot to talk about regarding grant RFAs in December. So that'll be, I think, a pretty big conversation to have at that quarterly meeting. And also, as I think some of the members of the council had noted, we really want to take the time we need to have good engagement around this plan. And in order to do that, I think we want to also have something that's pretty well built in order to share that and then involve people in continuing creation with us. And this gives us more time to do that kind of engagement with programs, with tribal nations, with youth. That's what we'll look to do early next year. So if we get to the next slide, I'll talk about the structure. So we shared some of this. There's a little bit of updating here, but this is the proposed structure for the strategic plan that we're working off of. The same 3 imperatives that are kind of the 3 pillars of the plan are there at the second row. I'll talk a little bit more about those in a bit. For those of you who've already seen this, I'll just keep it really brief. And of course, you'll have a chance to look at all this in the slide deck. But the most here, really the ways that we work. What's ended up happening is as we've started to take some of the ideas from the last council retreat and work with staff to really take those ideas and build them into actions, these modes are a way for us to kind of check, okay, how is this action that we would take going to work and who is going to be involved in what we're doing here and how are we impacting the either youth or programs or communities or systems with the work that we do. And then strategies and actions are really the actual components of work that we're now working to build into the structure and refine. So moving to the next slide, just again, these are sort of the three that in the previous plan we talked about as the overarching goals. Here, there are really these three ways that we sort of classify the things that we would propose to do in the plan. The first one is sort of changed a little bit. In the previous version of this, you saw it was prioritize prevention. The wording may still need some more work, but we've added early intervention here, really an acknowledgement of that there's often, I think, a distinction between prevention and intervention, and our grant making and our work with communities does, I think, both. But ultimately, this is really about removing barriers, disrupting disconnection, system involvement, crime and violence. It's about addressing root causes. This is where a lot of our prevention and justice work would live in the plan, as well as some of the work of our grant making. The second imperative here is create connection. This is really about more directly how we support youth-centered spaces, the relationship building and the skill building that organizations with our grants. How are we creating opportunities for youth to engage with education and work, to re-engage, to build their skills for learning, work, and life. And the third here, this I think previously was worded slightly differently. I've changed it to embed equity. That may also, again, be something that could be wordsmithed, but I wanted it to really reflect that the goal is to make equity an intrinsic part of the things that we are doing, to really focus on how we work for a more equitable, just, and responsive system, both our own system and those systems that we connect with, working to identify and eliminate disparities and ensure that all youth can thrive in their chosen educational and career paths. I'll pause for a second here just to give folks a second to, if you have any comments or questions so far, before we move on. All right. If it's all right, I'll keep moving and we'll get to some of the fun new stuff.
Nope. You're good.
Oh, maybe not. I've got the 4 modes here. I'm not going to spend any time on this, just in the interest of moving on. But this again was about the ways that our work impacts both individual youth as well as our grantees and programs, and then work with the community and systems, where we're really talking about our work with other agencies, our work on a national and state scale. Next slide, please. All right. So here you can see these 3 imperatives, and a lot of the work we've done over the last while has been with staff to take, again, the pretty significant amount of this ideas, priorities that emerged during the last retreat, and to try to start turning those things into actions and turning those actions into strategies. So what you see here is a first attempt, and I don't know what happened with my bullets there, a first attempt to break out what the strategies, the broad strategies might look like under each of these imperatives. So you can read this, but each of these 3 imperatives, there's 3 main strategies, and then the next slide we'll talk more about how you drill down another level to the actions. But the prevention and intervention focused strategies are really around interagency alignment, our work to address disconnection through more effective cross-system work and data sharing. We had a number of things that emerged as priorities around both our work with the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act and Title II funds, as well as our JCP work and the prevention and justice operations. And so that strategy, will include all the different actions around training and policy repair. Creating connection is really, that's where our grant framework work, some of what the RFA Workgroup is beginning to address already lives there in that section. Our communication work, which is really about increasing the visibility of YDO, and also our work to really more effectively engage and empower young people. That also lives under that connection vertical. And then embedding equity, a lot of the work to strengthen council's voice, advocacy work on the part of the council, that's there, as well as how we are working to make our funding processes more transparent, accessible, and equitable. There's also some work we want to do around data and reporting. If you measure it, it matters, and we think that is the place where we really need to strengthen what we do in order to more effectively do some of this equity and disparity based work. So there's a lot that goes into each of these. I'm not going to share the full outline with all of the actions that we've clustered here, but I will in the next slide provide an example of one of the imperatives and just what that looks like. There is a lot of information, and what I want to say is that we'll share the more detailed draft outline prior to work group work. We're still working on some revisions. And as we set a date, we'll share that out with the council so folks have some time to read, review, reflect. When we come back together to start working on the plan in earnest, you'll have had an opportunity to dig into that. This just gives you a sense of some of the broad strategies. And in the next slide, I went ahead and took the imperative around embed equity. And there's the old wording, enhance equity. We don't just want to enhance it, we actually want to embed it. So I missed that update there, but you can see here, so those three strategies, I've pulled in some of the actions, and these actions are either directly taken from the stuff that came up in the retreat in November, or in some cases, they might be sort of a hybrid of multiple ideas or conversations. We've tried to pull 4 or 5 things from the retreat into, something that kind of captures that idea. So under the activation of council voice and impact, you can see some of the ideas that came up in the retreat around having guests participate in council meetings and how we bring young people into the council meeting space. Some work around recruitment and work around advocacy training and guidance so we can help the council to be more impactful around the work of the agency. And so that is an example of one strategy and some of the actions. My guess is that each of these actions probably would have multiple steps. So there's even another layer beyond that. And that's the kind of work that we might get into in the retreat and beyond. I'm really talking about how we do these things. How do we take these strategies and actions and tangibly achieve this stuff? And again, you can see transparency, accessibility, and equity in grant making. We've identified a number of different ways that we would try to move that forward. You can see in all three of these that the mode or the sort of level that each of these actions is really trying to take place on is identified there at the end. What I think we've realized is that in terms of an organizing principle, the strategies and the actions feel like they're the things that go together, but the mode helps us to look at, okay, well, how are the different ways that we are doing this connected? So if we're looking at how we do data and reporting, there's work to do at the system level, also at the community level, the program level, and the youth level. In some cases, there might be a level that isn't really directly touched by a strategy, but this is a way for us to check and say, are we looking at this at all the levels that we operate and thinking about how we can affect change at these different levels. I will pause there, seeing it's about 1 o'clock. I want to give folks a chance. This is a lot. I think we've had a lot today already, just to look at this and then welcome some comments or questions. Just in this, again, an example, rough draft, what one imperative might look like with all of the strategies, actions, and modes built in there. I can't hear anything. Am I, there we go. Now I can hear.
You were muted.
Do we have any questions online?
Don't see online. Nope. I'm good.
All right. Well, I am happy to talk more about this at any time. I'm going to jump to the next slide, or if Melissa, if you take us there. I will say that we've been paused on the strategic planning work group to allow for that RFA work group to really get going, and they've been meeting about every 2 weeks and doing great work. I think the cadence will be slowing, and there is a RFA work group meeting in early October, I believe on the 11th. So we're looking for a date at the probably latter end of October to bring the strategic planning work group back together to allow for some time for folks to respond to and further develop draft structure. As mentioned, we'll be able to share out the full draft structure kind of at the level of granularity you just saw. We want to talk about prioritization, like how do we started this in the work group and realized the structure might need to come first, but now that we have a structure, how do we prioritize it? How do we define importance? How do we define outcomes? How do the outcomes reshape those strategies? So we want to have some discussion about that. I think that will actually be a bigger discussion in the retreat as well. But we feel like the work group could be a good opportunity to check in, to talk about this, to plan for the retreat as well. And then we're now looking at bringing everyone back together in person for annual retreat. And then I'll stop there and see if Brian wants to say a few words about that.
Thanks, Cord. Yeah, Brian Detman, Youth Development Director. I know we're all sort of post-lunch here, but I just want people to, it's a lot of information, but I think there are some of these core questions that I really encourage folks to come to the work group meeting and or just be thinking about as we go to retreat around what was up on the slide around how do we prioritize? I mean, once we get into the layers, we can get layers deep, but we have these 3 different imperatives. Is there one of those that's more important than another? And we don't have to answer that right now, but that's something I think we've got to wrestle with. I think about the prevention imperative. Again, given what we just heard from our colleagues at Marion County, I wonder if we all have the same definition of prevention. And I mean, we are preventing further penetration, preventing bad things from happening. We want to engage you around some of the big questions, and of course around outcomes and what does a successful implementation of the plan look like? What do we think around the table? What does community think around? What do our partners and stakeholders think? Is it more resources for youth development? Is it policy discussions around how we are supporting the younger people who are touching the system? I don't know, but I'm really eager for us to have some of those kinds of discussions. I think we'll, in a work group, start to formulate again what will make sense and what will be interesting, exciting, and provocative. And we want this to be not just, as I said, just something on a page or in a PowerPoint, but something that we can that can really meaningfully guide our work over the next couple of years. So those are my quick thoughts.
Christina McMahon. As far as the imperatives go, when I look at these 3, prioritizing prevention, early intervention, create connection, embed equity, to me, it feels like they're all very interconnected. I don't think they're so interconnected in my mind. I don't think that if we're doing things in a meaningful way, we're going to impact all 3 of these areas. That's just my opinion. But the other thing is when you say, small questions like, oh, how do we do this, right? Small question, thanks, Brian. I feel like there's this problem in Oregon right now with, you heard them talking, the Marion County people talking about, the impact of systems that aren't working, being disenfranchised, not trusting systems, being left out by systems. And I feel a sense of frustration right now because it feels like there's a lot of spinning silo universes going on in Oregon right now. So we have this, we are the state advisory group for the requirement by the, the PAG, that's by the SAG, that's part of what we do, that's not everything. There's this amazing work going on here, and then there's good stuff happening with the System of Care Advisory Council, but there's this disconnect, and it seems. Then we've got the new Juvenile Justice Policy Commission that was formed by legislative action, and I'm worried about, is that going to be so focused on the kids who are already coming to our doors in handcuffs, that the piece about prevention and early intervention gets lost. It is not a separate conversation. It's the same conversation. To me, it's like we focus so much on the middle and the deep end of the pool. We forget about this shallower end of the pool, but kids end up swimming or getting tossed into the other end of the pool. So I'm not trying to put down the Juvenile Justice Policy Commission, but I'm saying that I'm worried that there's all these little spinning spheres, and it doesn't seem like there's good coordination yet. I'm not trying to be critical, some of this stuff is new, but good coordination and communication. I know I'm not trying to bring up a sore subject, but how did YDC get left out of the list of folks that had to be at the juvenile YDO at the Juvenile Justice Policy Commission? That is mind blowing, right? So I'm worried. So I'm not making a power play for YDO. I'm saying that I really worry that there's all this money being invested over here in this spinning sphere, over here, and we're not, at the end of the day, working smarter, more effectively, more efficiently, more meaningfully in a way that impacts the people that we're trying to impact. So I don't know how that fits into your strategic plan, but to me, that's not something we can keep ignoring, because we're going to have 300 bureaucracies and nothing's going to change. We're going to still have Lawrence saying, hey, what are you doing about these families in crisis who can't access behavioral health? What are we doing about we don't have the right kind of programming to actually meet the needs? So sorry, I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm just, it's concerning to me. So anyway.
We live in the system all the time. I'm so curious about what your thoughts are.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Molly. That was Molly Rogers.
That was Molly Rogers. I look at this, and I'm just really interested in everybody's perspective that's not us.
I have a comment. Marisol Ortega, I think what you're saying is so spot on and valid with what I've seen in my work and also personally. And I think little things like accessing student data should not be as difficult as it is for re-engagement and also juvenile justice supports. And so I don't know, don't have an answer, but I just want to agree and say that this is something that with AI, I don't know, I think there's a lot to explore, and what we have right now is just not working, and we're allowing you to get further into the system and to experience these really terrible things when we could have caught it at the beginning.
Aren't there, the BD Lewis, aren't there, I'm sure this happens. Being facetious. Once a year summits where there's people coming together to kind of cross-check services, silos, or even, twice a year would be, no?
Molly Rogers, I think, I think that makes a lot of sense. But what I know is that there are different eligibility criteria for every different state and federal funding resource out there. And that the entities that, and you'll hear my frustration in this, the frustration is very real for me, is that as a family or a youth trying to navigate all of those systems, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine because I can't navigate those systems, and I know those systems really well.
Right.
So we're not coming together and having any conversations. It's little nugget people like me or Christina or Marcella or Travis that we know the big systems, so we can, but you have to find one of us. You have to find those people that can make those system connections, because it's not happening.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You give me time, I could sit with people, we could talk, okay, what is that summit? Not one day, right? But, and then grouped in sectors and, you know, people kind of, everybody laying out barriers and then from there, in that moment talking about, okay, here's how I did the wraparound, but if blah, 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 you know what I'm saying? And then, oh, it's a legislative dynamic. Okay, so this is what we're gonna make as a priority. We're going to go and, I don't want to say filibuster or, you know, put together legislation. This needs to happen, and here's how it's gonna save us money. Because people like to hear the money word, right? We're duplicating resources, and this is a barrier. And then, so it could, I don't know, I'm just thinking, and maybe it can be an easy area, because I always think about you when, you know, you made me think about that. You know?
Yeah, Marion, take it for the record. And I think that's where I know like the database piece, and that might feel like something totally different, but I don't think it is, because we have these different systems like education and juvenile justice and foster care, you know, DHS, that are reinventing the wheel every time they touch the student or this youth, you know, and it's like there has to be, in this day and age, there's a better system and an easier way for us to all collaborate and work together and make sure that that youth is not having to explain their situation time and time again. And it's just, we need to prioritize that.
How about I become an organization, write a grant, and invite all the organizations to come.
So, Molly Rogers, I don't want to lose your thought. It's not the time to discuss it. I think it's retreat time. Yeah. But when we think about taking a leadership role and a summit and a think tank or a thought process, because the other thing you heard from Marion County, I know my county, I know Christina, I know Crook County, we're all hiring mental health providers and CADCs. And we're paying for those out of general fund because of what you're talking about. It used to be that Anya participated in our disproportionate minority contact summits. And those summits were great days of coming together. It's not unheard of us that we support and bring people together. Today's not the time, maybe that's at the retreat, but that might be an action thing that we could do.
Yeah. For the record, Jeff Parker here, real quickly. Molly, I appreciate your question. Like, what are you thinking? We talk about systems, and I think we just need to be honest. Systems are by their very nature uncaring, right? People within a system are caring, loving, professional, experts, but the system itself cannot be any of those things. And so a family confronted with a system will find betrayal in the system, but not from the people in the system. And entities that are grantees will at some level find betrayal from the budget process that then limits them and keeps them on the outside of the game. So I think what we're talking about is trying to personalize a system which is unpersonalizable. It will always, always have to be objective and inert. And it's the people within them that make the difference. And that's the connectivity that we're trying to make. The system has to process. It's an assembly line. It has to function, and it needs money to do it. But it's connecting the people within those systems that will make the difference for a family, for a grantee, for a future that we're all looking for. And so our reliance on systems will fail us every time. If we're hoping them to be better than they will. It's the people within them that are gonna make it right.
That's pretty profound.
Marisa, sorry, I don't know, I raised my hand. No, I appreciate your comment, and I think that that's exactly right. But I'm sorry, I keep going back to data. But going back to data and policy and procedures, if we don't have the proper process in place, we're gonna lose the trust that we built with that community every single time. So like having to retell your story, like at this point, I know you can't help me. I'm not gonna say it again, you know? And so like those are the things that I think that as a system, as like a process and procedures, like we can try to mitigate and like make things work more efficiently for our youth and families.
Christina McMahon, just to kind of dovetail on that, when our guests were talking over lunch, and I think it was Travis who said, you know, these families having to fill out an 18-page application for housing or OHP or whatever, you know, and we just go and we hold their hand and help them do that. I think, you know, maybe I've never been called Pollyanna, but it's like, can't we make it simpler and more humane than it is? I mean, I know what you said. I'm part of the system. I own it. Okay,
So am I.
I didn't take it
So am I.
personally.
We all.
But you know, it just feels like we could work in a way that was not only more effective and efficient, but also more humane. You know, so I don't know. You're absolutely right, though. It's the people. So.
All right, anything from online?
Nothing so far.
Then
Here's
maybe,
your chance, online folks.
yeah, if we can have this kind of conversation, take this idea, that's something we could be instrumental in. We can make that decision. We can do a thing.
In small samples even.
Yeah, we could organize. And what was the DMC, the Disproportionate Minority Contact Summit, that then became, I don't know, now we're talking about that as racial and ethnic disparities, but I think under Serena's and this council's leadership a few years ago, wasn't there some gathering around, maybe it was around youth and equity, I can't remember exactly because I wasn't here, but.
Yeah, we had the Disproportionate Minority Contact Summit used to be known as the Governor's Summit on disproportionality, and the name changed over the years. But the two key keywords, one is governor and two summit, because it came as a directive from the governor's office, and I could see Joe O'Leary somewhere. When I first got involved was the governor's summit. Joe was in the governor's office.
There he is.
Hey, Joe.
How much gray is in my beard?
I know, right?
Long ago.
But it's true, but it didn't start, the summit was started by first coming of Governor Kids Harbor, and then when you were in Kulongovsky's office, and that continued, and the summit continued on pretty much until a few years ago. And then, I don't know if it was money or it was not strong enough connection with the governor's office, not to blame anybody. It just sort of faded away. It was not an intention to ever stop it. So if there is a way to bring it back to life and still name it the Governor's Summit, then we need to approach Governor Carter with that. But what we did was Serena's leadership. We had the Equity Summit at OHSU.
Yes.
Remember that, Joe? You probably recall that as well. So that was, it was not an alternative to the Governor's Summit. It just was a summit where pretty much same partners were invited to the table, with community partners, state agencies, local agencies. Maricel was leading our youth council members to facilitate the summit. It was not, Joe, remember there were a couple of young gentlemen from Oregon Youth Authority who, it was wonderful. It was really a great event. So it doesn't have to be the governor's summit, but we can still organize something.
It was the, sorry, Marcel Ortega. It was the Equity and Juvenile Justice Summit.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've got some things that we can do. I know we do need to move because we're now over.
Sorry.
No, don't be good. This is, wanted to keep the conversation going to some extent. I think we've covered, right? I think the retreat was part of Cord's presentation. I think were we going to go to a committee update, or do we want to go to our?
We're going to go to our folks in Washington, D.C. Yes.
It's like, is somebody holding a mic and is there a camera? Like, and now from.
On Janine's camera. Let's see if we can spotlight.
Oh no, it absolutely should not be that way.
There he is.
Because everybody got quiet. Does that mean I'm up?
Yep.
Wow, this is weird. We were just talking. It's different to be from Cord's perspective in the media. I think it's the first time I've been from this perspective. So, and that is definitely me. Well, officially, welcome live from DC. We're excited to just touch base, and for those of you, I don't know, Brian, you shared, we're out here with the National Youth Employment Coalition's Youth Days, and so there's 5 council members here with me. We just spent the day on the Hill. We met with Senator Wyden, Rep. Salinas, and Rep. Bonamici, and had great meetings. I just said that wrong.
That's right.
Okay. I'll name up all day. But had a great time out here. We are getting ready for a reception and kind of debrief with NYEC. But I just want to quickly, we'll pass around the computer for people to say hello and just highlight, introduce themselves. I also have 2 brand new council members with us today. So we introduced them several times as new council members on the Hill. But they usually say hello to you all via online. So I'll turn it over to Janine. And so sorry for getting seasick, but we're going to pass the computer.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be coming to you from DC. We had a really fun, actually, we're having maybe too much fun. We'll keep it, but we were very effective in our Hill visits today. And us adults were mostly quiet while our youth talked. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Good to see everybody.
Yeah, hi. But yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting experience, and it's great how we didn't actually get to see any of the actual Congress people, but it was still staff were very interested. They were asking us a lot of questions. I think most of them were already familiar with the IOA, so yeah, it was a great experience.
Thanks, Janelle.
Yeah, good to see you, Janelle.
Alex.
My name is Alex. And yeah, we were on the Hill today. Super fun. We got to get a lot of work done. We were able to introduce what we really want, the funding, because we're losing our ARPA funding. So we really pushed that. And then we also pushed for the WIOA reauthorization. But in addition, we also brought up many different issues. Are the Congress people, from drug abuse to homelessness to rural education? We talked about almost everything. It was a really good day today.
Thanks, Alex.
Andy. Hi, Andy.
What you guys doing?
Good.
You guys got empty chairs from us, huh? I can see.
Holding space for you.
Yeah. Hey, it was great. We talked to a lot of the people here, and we mentioned a lot of the ARPA funding that we were gonna try to get back for the kids, and working with the tribes, the 9 tribes, and how it affects how our spending is for that. It's big, so I kind of let them know about the 9 tribes and how it affects us. So it was good meetings today.
Thanks,
Thank
Andy.
you.
Look at the tide.
Kayla Savannah Ladiswa. I'm Nashi Taldash today initially. So my name is Savannah. And I said, like, I'm a person from Galis. So Galis, Rogue River area is one of my tribal bands. So my original homelands, as well as Malala and Yamhill. I'm really excited to be a new board member. This has been such a cool experience. Me and Andy have been pointing out all the people in ribbon skirts and just seeing like all the Native people. It's been super cool. Like I've seen so many. Which is a really awesome experience. And I think like everybody's talked about all like the great points, but my favorite meeting was like the last one we went to. I thought that was super cool. We had a really good conversation. She actually asked us how do we reach like youth that have like exited the education system? And I thought we had really, really good conversations surrounding that. And just all the conversations have been really productive. So yeah, grateful to be here.
Thanks, Savannah.
Awesome.
I know I'm not nearly as exciting, but just no, I don't have a tie on, Andy. I chose it's hot in DC, but again, I just appreciate the opportunity. It's been, I think, a really fruitful experience for us, and lifting up our young people on the council here on the Hill has just been honestly a pretty amazing experience. And so, just best wishes from everybody. We are not traveling home, in case you're wondering. We are not traveling home tonight. We're going to tomorrow morning. I think that's about it, right, Brian? Or anything else?
Yeah, I just wonder if anybody here, either online or in the room, has questions that they might want to direct. Thanks for pointing the camera. I mean, Savannah, Andy's hiding behind you, Savannah. Oh, no, he's not. Oh, cool. Oh, cool. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, the background, good. The background. So, yeah, any comments or questions from council members or council members on virtually, just for the assembled?
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great. Marisol Ortega for the record. Savannah, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in person, so happy that you're able to be there. And for the rest of Alexander and Janelle, we're really happy that you're able to be there, and we look forward to hearing your updates when you get back.
And I think, unless the agenda changed, I think we'll be giving a more thorough update with pictures. Not all of them, but some of them. December.
In December, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you guys have fun.
Yes.
Enjoy your last night in DC.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Great is that. Live from DC.
That was awesome.
That was fun.
I almost got serious.
They almost get to call it a day, maybe. That was cool. They must be exhausted.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's happy hour in DC.
Yeah.
Well earned.
Yeah, on the committees.
Yes. We'll do some quick committee updates. Is there anyone who would like to share or would like to begin?
There's Equity and Disparity Committee, Cord, or the chair of that committee.
Maybe I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Just no pressure. We had Juvenile Justice, appreciate you all went earlier. There have not been very many committee updates, except for Juvenile Justice. Executive Committee met to kind of preview the agenda with Marion there in person. But with all the work group meetings, both from the RFA and for strategic planning, and given again Juvenile Justice Committee's work on the 30-day detention and detention guidelines, I mean, there's been more than enough work happening. So no pressure on any one committee or staff liaison, because we've either postponed or not had some meetings because there have been so many other things happening. But we wanted to obviously make space. I think Youth Committee hasn't met in a bit, but we've got Youth Committee members showing up to various work groups and Juvenile Justice. And, we were fortunate to have Kiwi there at the Juvenile Justice Committee. No, he wasn't able to make it today, but Joe and I have been texting and just doing our best to make sure that we're supporting Kiwi, who's again was at one of our last committee meetings. So that quick, if there's a particular thing that a committee needs to say, here's time and space to do it, but that's maybe why
Yes.
we don't have like formal presentation.
Yeah.
I have a question. For the record, Anna Sikina, Melissa, did we get responses from the committee members who were not?
For the vote?
Who were muted at the time?
Yes, so via chat, we had 2 yes votes from folks who were not able to unmute,
Awesome.
which
So-
brought us to a total of 11, which was what the required vote to pass.
So for the record, the motion passed.
Yes.
30-day detention facility program in Deschutes County has been approved.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Jeff Parker here. Also for the record, the equity committee officially went on pause as we get these other projects done. So there won't be an update from the equity committee until we probably get into the new year. And it was about strategic planning and RFA and all that stuff. So we made a deliberate decision to just put it on.
Hey, this is Cord Bucher. I just was going to note for the Policy, Rules, and Research Committee, we had not scheduled a committee meeting in the last quarter, but members of the committee have been active on both the Strategic Planning Workgroup and the RFA Workgroup. So the workgroups have been robust and active, and actually for folks who haven't had an opportunity to join one, get another pitch. I think that's a really gratifying and exciting workspace for the staff, council, and the community. So we'll continue with that, but I imagine we'll have committee updates in the future.
Thanks, Cord.
All right.
I can speak a little bit for the youth committee. There's not, as Abraham, for the record, but there's not much of an update. As you already saw, the youth are in DC. So when we were supposed to have a meeting, we're like, well, youth are in DC. Then we'll plan another meeting. The next meeting will probably be an update. So
thanks, Abraham.
Do we have public comment?
There is no one online except, oh, that's not true. We have Joe O'Leary and Bethany Tramer online as your chance to make a public comment, if you like.
Hi, everybody. Joe O'Leary, he, him pronouns. I'm the director of the Oregon Youth Authority. I haven't been to a council meeting in a little bit, and I appreciated the invite from Brian, and it was great to listen in to your discussion today. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
I think that's it, Melissa.
We're actually ahead of schedule. Look at us. So the last item is just YDO update, meeting roundup discussion.
I'll just say a few things just kind of as we roll forward. Again, deep appreciation to everybody who was prepared to speak and facilitate. Thank you, staff I know both here in the room and online. Really important and great work. A few takeaways from me. I know we've got, it sounds like for the December meeting, Josephine County 30-day detention program to approve. So just sort of saying that out loud and noting it, that'll come in December. And Jen, also just appreciate the conversation we had and discussion about any questions related to Deschutes County's program, so that it was good. And Jeff had to step out, but everybody understanding the role that those programs play and why they are doing what they're doing in our local communities around the state. OJDDA conference starting Sunday evening through Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Tuesday at 3?
Tuesday at 3.
Sunday to Tuesday.
Sunday to Tuesday. So if you know, I heard Christina say it, and because of our partnership with OJDDA, we might have a slot or two based on some of the registrations that are a part of our diamond status. So if somebody's eager or interested, let me know, or Anya, and I don't know, we want to make things happen quickly.
Even if you just come down for a day to meeting.
Yeah, we could
I know, I see you thinking about it.
Yeah.
Just my schedule is just
Yeah.
murdering me as far as lately, but
Give it some thought, let me
Sunday,
know.
leave Monday, so
Let me know. And we could, I want our system of care advisory council folks. Do you know if any of them are coming? Not that you have memorized 200 and maybe I could.
What's the Sunday start?
6 p.m.
Yeah. So
I know there's some state folks that I don't know that are registered. I can see like OHA, you know, folks, but I don't remember seeing anyone directly with system of care.
So I know Sonia made the pitch to System of Care,
Oh,
and Sonia's our training. Yeah, she's the OJDD representative on System of Care.
great. And I attend those meetings too with her. So we'll check. I'll circle back. So OJDDA conference starting Sunday to Tuesday. I'll be there, as will several other staff members from the division. So we're excited about that. Christina did mention the Juvenile Justice Policy Committee. I am now up to be nominated for that. I have to attend the Senate committee hearing on September 24th. So my nomination has been forwarded to the Rules Committee, and yes, that we won't go into how we weren't initially represented on the committee, but that hopefully will be rectified soon. And I think the conversations I sat in, and as well as did Anya, we were able to listen into last committee meeting. Molly, you're on the committee.
Yeah, representing OJDD.
Representing, right. So we'll be at the table in one way, shape, or form. And I think the conversations there around many of the issues we've talked about, I think are going to be really important. That's an important table to be at, but also speaking to, I think, your point, Christina, like all these various tables, and it's hard to be everywhere all the time. So, but note that duly noted that we're going to need to stay engaged with that. And then strategic plan, more to come later in October with a work group meeting. But also a planning retreat in November. The dates were listed there. We're thinking kind of like we did last fall, a couple of, half day-ish, I'm not, maybe it's 4 hours, maybe it's 6 hours. We were thinking of doing that in Wilsonville. So there's a space that some of our teams have used in the past, I think at the library, if I'm not mistaken. So it's, for those who are more Marion County, Salem based, it's a little bit north, or we're further south, Jeff, and Janine further south, but not all the way up in Portland. Feels like there's, again, a good space that we could meet in person over the course of a couple of days to talk about some of the things that Court shared and to dive a little bit more deeply into the plan and some of the big questions. And hey, again, I think this idea of a summit organized by Youth Development Oregon in some fashion and is one we should think more about and discuss. So those are kind of key takeaways for me. Again, appreciate the time. That's it in terms of wrap up.
Christina McMahon, for about the 10th time. The YTO retreat is going to be similar to what happened last year, where it's staff and council members. Okay.
Yep.
Because I didn't. I need to move some stuff.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that I'm there, but I think it might be helpful to get the word out in an email to hold
the time,
the dates, because there are some people that aren't here or have had to leave.
Yeah. We'll work on it. I don't know if we have a hold yet, but we'll get on top of it.
Right, Jeff Parker, in the same thing. Are those dates set? It says tentative here.
Unless I'm hearing some massive, there's election or something, but that's the week prior. So yes, I'll consider those dates firm. The details and the times I've got to work out, but
what were the dates?
The 13th and the 14th.
Do you think, you said half a day, but do you think it's gonna be like a
I think like a
morning and then?
10 to 2 or 3 kind of schedule with folks who may need to get to drive or drop somebody off in school or any of those dynamics and folks to get there. I think we might have started at 9 one of the days. I can't
I know, I
remember.
need to look back at November and see
But
what
yeah,
we did.
kind of over with a working lunch and try to get folks out by 3-ish. Good question. Yeah, we still need to formulate more of a plan, but
Do you have any questions online?
anything, Melissa, from the chat?
I don't see anything.
So our next youth quarterly meeting is December 12th, just as a reminder. And unless anyone has additional comments, we can adjourn the meeting. And we're early. Congrats, that's great.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know.